A colossal event titled The Strongest Gamer Kicks Everything Off, with the narrator declaring it to be something surreal, filled with millions of competitors and several surprises. Watching through giant screens, the crowd cheers while the announcer highlights that only one winner remained after overcoming all obstacles and disputes. At that moment, the central stage of the league of streaming lights up, and the announcer praises the fact that the winner didn't back down, facing the obstacles head-on. Cementing a true legend off-screen, the gamer takes the lead on the scoreboard, etching this historic moment into the viewer's memories. Celebrating her absolute triumph, Shin Hae-in raises the golden trophy, establishing herself as the first winner of the championship. Leaving everyone stunned, she demonstrates an unbelievable reaction time and an instinct that goes way beyond normal precision. Treated like a legend, the young woman went beyond the definition of a player, showcasing unmatched physical skills. Now, with this final stage wrapping up her journey in the tournament, the winner eagerly awaits her official pro debut. Leaving an impressive legacy behind, the big question remains as to who will manage to inherit all this glory in the next championship. 6 long years pass since that epic event, and the scene focuses on a gigantic and refined building right in the downtown area. Inside, in a highly high-tech lab filled with virtual reality devices, the staff's pace is quite relaxed. Stepping out of one of the capsules with a carefree posture, Seojin shows that he was highly focused on the test he just finished. Analyzing the young man closely, Director Jae immediately asks how his experience using the machine was. She casually mentions how cool it must be to get back to gaming after such a long time away. Feeling relieved with the outcome, Seojin assures her that he felt way less dizzy than he used to back in the day. His body also feels much lighter, and Jae totally agrees with his comment about the machine's comfort. The director then asks the young man to come closer, signaling that she has something important to show him. Presenting the info on a document, she explains that they used brand new technology to push the limits and deliver max performance. Thanks to this brilliant progress, even individuals with severe physical restrictions can play without any complications. In fact, she assures him that someone with a low sync rate like his won't face any issues, as long as he sticks to the time limit. Intrigued by the innovation, the MC doesn't beat around the bush and asks for the price of that impressive equipment. In a very direct and corporate manner, the woman replies that the machine costs exactly 1 billion won. Startled by the unreal amount, the young man repeats the number, in absolute disbelief at what he just heard. Chuckling at his reaction, Jae admits that the price tag is steep, especially since she knows he is completely broke. However, she already had a plan in mind and offers a special deal to the young man, asking if he'd be down for it. This capsule is actually a rig created to merge virtual reality with the industrial sector, catering to the current generation's interests. But amidst such bureaucratic uses, there's one specific feature that left humanity totally fascinated. In an extremely action-packed sequence, a warrior lands from the sky slamming a flaming sword into the ground, causing colossal damage. Harnessing the extreme power of the attack, the strike directly hits a giant monster that has no way to defend itself. Amidst this stylish chaos, the MC appears in his combat gear, making it clear that the world's true obsession is gaming. The game signals the arrival of a boss, and the immersion is so intense that it's hard to believe it's just a virtual simulation. As soon as the fight kicks off, the battle becomes frantic, full of fiery explosions and unhinged action. Using very flashy powers, Seojin admits that he was instantly captivated by that fantasy world. The whole planet was taken over by this unstoppable hype, leading everyone to test the capsules without a second thought. But the joy was short-lived, as in less than 1 year he passed out in the machine due to a severe hardware failure. This happened because his sync rate, which was supposed to be flawless to perform in the game, was absurdly below the required standard. Back in real life, Seojin appears sitting on a bus, checking his smartphone with an exhausted expression. Watching a video of a newbie getting totally wrecked in the league of streaming, he reflects on how badly he wanted to try the new tech. However, the financial struggle is real, as his rent is due, and he has no way to pay for such an expensive setup. Disappointed by his own desire to play, he comes to the conclusion that he wouldn't be going through this if he had never discovered this universe. Staring into the void and reflecting, the guy questions what the real reasons were that got him into this technology way back when. At that moment, the bus passes by a huge billboard, advertising a very famous guest for an exhibition match. Already nighttime, the camera focuses on the simple and quiet apartment building where the young man lives. In his room, Kim Tae-woo, his roommate and streaming veteran, is mesmerized watching the South Korean star's broadcast. Munching on snacks, his buddy excitedly says that the scale of the tournament is massive, drawing even active pro players for the showcase. Walking in exhausted, Seojun finds the noise weird and asks what his friend is watching with the volume cranked up so high. With his eyes glued to the screen, Tae-woo excitedly replies that the championship's exhibition match is simply amazing. Intrigued by all the hype, the MC asks if this tournament is really that big of a deal, since he saw ads for it everywhere. Frustrated by the lack of knowledge, his buddy loses his patience and asks if the guy lost his mind asking such a noob question. Then he proudly details that the League of Streaming represents the absolute peak of the global competitive scene. Just to give you an idea, regular tournaments pull 3 million people in Korea alone, hitting 15 million with the global audience. On top of that monstrous crowd, the tournament is considered the biggest amateur championship, hosted by the event's own headquarters. Trying to wrap his head around the battle mechanics, Seojun asks what weapons most people prefer to use in these tournaments. Patiently, the veteran clarifies that the vast majority focus on magic and bows to secure an advantage by attacking from a distance. However, he states as a fact that the classic sword is still the definitive and superior choice in the game. Thinking about this tip, the guy gets pretty reflective, mumbling to himself about the chance of running a sword build. Trying to bring his buddy back to earth, Tae-woo warns him that wielding a sword doesn't guarantee a win, admitting he tried using one in the past and embarrassed himself. Brushing off his friend's bad experience, Seojun figures that anyone who streams can sign up for the championship without an issue. Feeling insulted by how easy he made it sound, the veteran grumbles that getting into the leg is pretty much impossible for a streamer with no clout. Finding the curiosity super weird, Tae-woo asks the reason for this sudden interest, since his roommate never cared about this stuff. Breaking the awkward vibe, the smartphone on the table starts buzzing non-stop, grabbing both of their attention. Snatching the phone right away, Seojun reads the newly arrived text message with total focus. The director's text informs him that a top-of-the-line capsule was put up as the ultimate prize for the league's grand champion. This luxury model will be awarded exactly at the tournament being held in the famous travel region this season. Remembering the confidential deal they made earlier, the director promised to lend him the gear for free until the tournament ended if he competed. With this perfect opportunity suddenly popping up, the MC gets a look full of pure confidence. The director's challenging question echoes in his head, leaving the risky and final decision entirely up to him. Looking over at his friend, Seojun says super casually that maybe he should enter this championship. Choking on his food, Tae-woo freezes and desperately asks his buddy to repeat the nonsense he just spouted. With unreal calmness, the young man confirms with full conviction that he's going to join the leg to compete for real. Already in a competitive mood, he oozes confidence and even has the nerve to ask if he wouldn't do pretty well playing it. Unable to react to so much arrogance, his friend completely freezes, almost convinced that Seojun has completely lost it. Trying to give the newbie a reality check, he warns him that the event is no joke and that irrelevant players have zero chance of getting in. But Seojun's thoughts are far away, finally realizing what made him want to return to gaming after years. The intense urge consuming his soul is to experience once again the ultimate glory of when he was known and feared as the Sword God. Digging through his memory, the MC remembers a distant time, surrounded by falling leaves. His piercing eyes show the strength of someone who has survived extremely tough clashes. Surrounded by multiple opponents amidst the fog, he takes a firm stance for battle. With a swift draw, the warrior readies his weapon, prepared to deal some serious damage. Spotting an opening, he lands a devastating attack, taking down the enemies with absolutely no mercy. The environment becomes a picture of total wipeout as he stands triumphant among his fallen foes. He holds on to these dark memories precisely because he possesses intact recollections of his past life. All of this rushes back to him out of nowhere, bringing up images of an illegal night market. Deep in that gross underworld, people were treated like mere merchandise waiting to be used. That was the awful reality of his previous incarnation, where he was nothing more than an enslaved, trapped child. Suddenly, an outbreak of violence erupts, spreading destruction and total chaos throughout the place. Emerging in the middle of the carnage, a supreme and grand swordsman walks up to the captive boy. Giving him a new lease on life, the mysterious guy kindly asks if the kid wants to tag along with him. By reaching out his hand, the man became the absolute salvation for the boy who had already lost faith in everything. Without a second thought, the kid accepts the help, sealing right then and there the path that would change his entire life. Heading toward a fresh start, the mentor took the boy far away from all that terror. While living in his new home, the youngster had to endure the envy of others and the weight of massive expectations on him. However, if that heroic rescue had never happened, the legendary warrior known as the Sword God would never have existed. Remembering his old master brings a huge wave of nostalgia, making the MC appreciate his own past even more. Shattering the emotional vibe, Tiwoo calls his buddy crazy after hearing that unexpected resolution. In disbelief at what he just heard, the veteran questions again the delusional stuff the MC just said. Thinking the reaction is way over the top, Seojun points at the rig and argues that using the device makes total sense. Pissed off, his roommate asks if the newbie has any idea about the strict requirements needed to join the leg. He immediately explains that entry is only allowed for those with established clout and a massive online fanbase. Then he sarcastically adds that reaching that level of fame out of nowhere is a nearly impossible grind. To be successful, a player needs to be charismatic and able to keep the audience entertained during the streams. Besides that, it's absolutely crucial to have insane skills in the game to hold on to a picky audience. Another major requirement is having a sharp sense of humor, keeping the viewers from getting bored while watching the gameplay. And to top off the nightmare, you still have to pull all-nighters grinding hard on video editing. Even if you execute all of that perfectly, failure is guaranteed if there's no one tuning into the live stream. Wrapping up his rant, he asks how someone with zero experience on modern capsules plans to pull off a win. Soaking in the lecture he just got, the guy stays quiet for a sec, pondering the situation. Without losing his cool, he asks if it wouldn't be possible to grow on the platform, relying purely on raw skill. Exhausted by so much stubbornness, the veteran takes a deep breath and admits that his friend is absurdly persistent. Then he tells him that the only way to impress everyone would be by defeating the game's main legend. Oozing confidence, Seojun directly replies that he is better than the champ and that he already tested the gear today. Seeing this as pure delusion, his buddy completely runs out of patience with the guy's cocky attitude. Without delay, he shoves the MC into the machine, wanting to give him an immediate reality check. Throwing down a challenge, Tiwoo says he'll do all the house chores if the newbie proves he can actually play well. Feeling like the bet is already in the bag, a smug smirk appears on the MC's face, knowing exactly what he's going to do. Instantly accepting the match, he seals the deal with the most chill vibe ever. With the agreement settled, the massive metal door of the VR capsule begins to close. Booting up the system, the screen notifies that the connection is established and loads his creator profile on the network. Already immersed in virtual reality, the young man thinks about how he never really cared much about the world's famous top 1 player. However, with the bet locked in, the game changed, and now his own pride is on the line. Recalling old lessons, the sovereign image of his former mentor pops up in the guy's thoughts once again. The old master used to say that everyone fails a lot before becoming true experts. Moreover, he warned that hesitating only dooms a person to stay stuck without achieving anything in life. Absorbing those words, the MC's eyes lock in with unshakable focus on the upcoming challenge. Waking up inside the game, he checks out the standard setting and wonders which map the system picked. Just then, a notification pops up saying that the veteran just entered the private training lobby. Spawning into the environment, his roommate shows up looking pretty relaxed, ready to test the newbie. Curious, Seojun asks about the place, and is told it's just the basic arena that comes with the machine system. The place is meant for players to practice against AI bots and try to break records. Tossing a wooden sword to the MC, Tiwoo warns that he won't fight him to avoid causing a total slaughter. Checking the blue UI, Seojun quickly scans the technical stats displayed in the training menu. The system shows that the levels range from 1 to 10, with the 10th being an exact clone of the legendary player. Full of pride, the veteran mentions that the champ has been undefeated in this training mode for 5 years. He quickly gives a heads up that, to reach the final tier, you have to beat stage 9, which is already a nightmare for beginners. Suddenly, his buddy notices a weird selection on the panel, and his eyes go wide, not understanding what's going on. Ignoring any danger warnings, the young man just locks in the selected level without a second thought. The bot takes shape in the center of the room, waiting for the final countdown to start the fight. Gripping his weapon tightly, the newbie hears the veteran totally freak out, demanding to know what difficulty he picked. With no time for explanations, the machine charges at the guy with terrifying speed. Showing off flawless reflexes, the warrior blocks the heavy strike, sparking heavily due to the intensity of the clash. Seeing that perfect parry, his roommate's jaw drops, letting out an expletive in pure shock. Overflowing with energy, the swordsman gives a smirk, proving he has total control over the matchup. Taking advantage of the enemy's opening, he counters with an incredibly powerful direct hit. Keeping up the aggression, the fighter spins his body, winding up for his next swift assault. Hitting the target with pinpoint accuracy, the wooden sword cuts through the wind and smashes into the bot with colossal force. Unable to guard, the machine is sent flying backward, while its health bar drops massively from the critical damage. Completely stunned by the crazy situation, his friend wonders if the game system is bugged. Regaining its balance, the AI doesn't back down and rushes in for another insane combo of attacks. Clashing weapons once again, Xiaojun dominates the center of the room, completely breaking the opponent's defensive posture. Wrapping up the clash, the kid unleashes a rapid flurry of blue slashes that eliminate any chance of a counterattack. Pushing the fight forward, the warrior dashes in using a super-fast speed boost. Capitalizing on the moment, he launches a massive blue wave that sweeps across the entire arena. The force is so extreme that the bot's limb glitches out and shatters instantly. Witnessing this unbelievable moment, Tiwu is shell-shocked and lets out a yell of despair. Despite the critical damage, the dummy desperately tries to stay on its feet. Meanwhile, Xiaojun lands lightly on the wooden floor, maintaining an unbreakable stance. With no ability to keep fighting, the bot completely freezes up and starts smoking. With absolute chill, the young man just watches the aftermath of his own combo. A critical error wipes out the enemy's system in a bright red flash. Defeated in an embarrassing way, the AI drops to the floor with zero chance to defend itself. Approving the end of the match, the UI notifies that he cleared level 9 of the training mode. In disbelief at the scene, his friend asks if that wrecked bot was actually level 9. Soon enough, he puts the pieces together, and panics realizing who the MC's next opponent is going to be. The game quickly processes the data, loading up a new stage for the next battle. Spawning amidst a bright light, a far more menacing machine appears in the center of the room. His buddy immediately recognizes the skin of the champion Shin Heiyan and freezes on the spot. Totally stressed out about the upcoming fight, Tiwu can barely breathe. Staring at the new challenger, Xiaojun tries to figure out who this weird figure in front of him is. Far away from there, back in the lab, an employee gives director Jihai a heads up. She asks what the logic was behind making such a sweet deal with that guy. Her coworker argues that handing over such an expensive rig for free was way too risky of a bet. Jihai justifies that she already predicted his loss in the league and planned to repossess the gear quickly. However, she admits that she hates seeing wasted potential, leaving her assistant a bit puzzled. Looking over the young man's track record, the director remembers just how cracked he was back in the day. Now, she is absolutely sure that the guy's combat skills have improved to a terrifying degree. Anxious, the employee points out again that just securing a spot in the league is already a massive hurdle. Keeping faith in her call, Jihai assures her that, if he decides to play for real, the odds of him claiming the ultimate prize and winning the whole championship are super high. Back in the game, the MC locks into a heavy exchange of blows with the AI. Watching the intense clash, his roommate wonders if the newbie even has a shot at winning. A prompt pops up offering the option to record, and Tiwu spots a golden opportunity right there. He figures that, if his buddy manages to take down the champ, the clip is going to be god-tier content. At the peak of the fight, a brutal hit sends the MC flying backward violently. Refusing to back out of the trade, he parries an aerial strike using all the strength of his wooden sword. The sheer force of the impact makes the guy skid, tearing up the floor of the battlefield. Gauging the opponent's raw power, Xiaojun admits that the legend definitely lives up to the hype. The image of the girl flashes through his mind, confirming that the pressure she gives off is exactly like back in the day. He acknowledges that her talent surpasses any other fighter he ever faced in his previous life. Dropping all modesty, the guy makes a point to label himself as the sole exception to that rule. Noticing his buddy spaced out, Tiwu yells frantically, demanding him to focus on the game. Capitalizing on the lack of attention, the machine lands a brutal kick on the kid. The veteran shakes his head in frustration, realizing his worst fear just came true. Declaring it's impossible to beat the legend, he watches his friend take another clean hit. Smacked right in the gut, the impact makes Xiaojun drop his sword onto the arena floor. Back on his feet again, the young man notices there's no sign of damage or pain on his body. Satisfied with the immersion, the warrior praises the insanely high quality of the virtual system. Dumbfounded by the guy's chill vibe, Tiwu pieces together something dark and goes mute. He concludes that the newbie tanked the hit on purpose just to test the pain settings, finding the move totally unhinged. Killing the relaxed mood, the dummy charges aggressively, winding up for a new fatal strike. The arena highlights the unreal speed at which the AI closes the gap between them. Pulling off a ruthless move, the machine aims to strike the target directly without a second thought. A colossal burst of blue energy erupts in the room the exact second the swords clash. The cold, artificial nature of the bot creates a massive contrast with the relentless fury of its swings. Keeping his mental state rock solid, Xiaojun shows zero fear in the face of extreme danger. The middle of the arena turns into a shower of sparks when their weapons meet violently. Locked into the duel, the kid tightens his grip so he doesn't get knocked down. Without giving him an inch of breathing room, the machine forces the guy's defense, trying to break his guard. With cold, sharp eyes, the warrior reads every single detail of his opponent's movements. Executing a nimble spin, the AI unleashes a massive slash capable of destroying any obstacle. With absurd agility, the young man leaps backward, dodging the spell right at the very last second. Skidding across the wooden floor, the bot repositions itself after whiffing the attack. Taunting his opponent who paused her assault, the MC asks if the fight is already over. Seeing that the AI isn't doing anything, he launches himself, shattering the floor with extreme force. Flying at the machine, Xiaojun mocks it, stating that now it's his turn to go on the offensive. With a massive leap, the warrior crashes into the enemy's guard, using everything he's got with his sword. The collision of the two weapons creates an impact force that shakes the room's entire structure. Unable to handle the monstrous pressure, the bot's wooden sword starts to crack. Watching something supposedly impossible happen, Tiwu's jaw drops, unable to believe his eyes. The weight of the blow is so overwhelming that the AI's weapon completely shatters into several pieces. Clearing the enemy out of the way, the sheer power of the strike launches the dummy violently into the arena wall. The swordsman stands tall, proving that all his combat mechanics are still flawless. Downed and utterly defeated, the final boss of the training mode can't react anymore. Pointing his weapon at the AI, the young man taunts it, saying the machine would need to grind for 80 years to beat him. Due to the critical error in its programming, the bot crumbles and vanishes into virtual data in thin air. The victory prompt pops up, lighting up the room, proving the guy's monstrous skill. Shocked by that unreachable triumph, Tiwu screams that his buddy just beat the legend's clone. The MC, however, stays cool and wonders if that performance is enough to start streaming. Hours fly by, and a peaceful morning dawns on the modest building where the duo lives. Honoring the bet, the veteran takes on the role of the housemaid and takes orders to cook the rice. Eating his noodles, Xiaojun complains about how the food is cooked and orders his friend to vacuum the living room and grab the laundry. On top of that, he demands the dishes be washed immediately, making Tiwu scrub the floor seething with rage. After handing out the chores, the bedroom door shuts, blocking out the noise of the cleaning. Staring at his brand new rig, the young man remembers installing the game the day before. As soon as the metal door slides open, he steps into the machine to prep for his very first stream. Chilling comfortably in the seat, the newbie closes his eyes and waits for the system to boot up. A bright light flashes on the screen, officially starting his deep dive into the virtual world. Opening his eyes calmly, the kid wakes up already logged into the game's environment. The place is a vast, well-lit, empty hall that seemingly has no boundaries. Looking all around, he's totally confused, trying to figure out where the heck he ended up. Immediately, a blue window pops up in front of him, grabbing all his attention. Reading that it's the player's lobby, he realizes that streamers get an exclusive private hub in the system. Seeing that the hall is totally bare, the young man figures he'll have to customize and decorate all of it later. However, his current priority is different, and he quickly links up with the famous video platform. The system screen pulls up showing the menus and the top-viewed live streams of the moment. Checking the leaderboards, the beginner decides that his one and only goal is to farm enough clout to enter the tournament. Upon getting the notification that the recording is starting, he locks in the game that will be his first major challenge. The chosen title is a stealth game, focused on taking out targets quietly in the dead of night. The lore takes place in an older era, where you have to use ruthless methods to get the jobs done. The game's hype was so massive that it hit 1 million views on launch day alone. In fact, the engagement is still through the roof, even more than a week after it dropped. Looking at the sheer size of the hype, Xiaojun figures this game is the best bet for a nobody to get some eyeballs. Suddenly, the scene shifts to a city at night, with a shadow swiftly parkouring across the rooftops. Landing with a heavy thud, the mysterious guy shows off his black gear and a razor-sharp dagger. Clinging to the stone wall, the individual flexes some acrobatic skills that would impress anyone. Perched at the top of the structure under the moonlight, the mercenary silently surveys the metropolis. A tense vibe fills the area as the shadowy figure waits for the perfect moment to strike. Finally taking full control of the avatar, the kid takes a breath and gets ready to kick off the action. Showing off his new gray-haired avatar, he flashes a confident smirk and declares the start of the playthrough. The UI lights up, confirming that the guy's stream is finally live. Looking at his own stream title, which said he was a newbie taking tips, he wonders if that's going to pull any clicks. Remembering Tiwu's promises about this meta makes the kid laugh, considering he's not actually a newbie. A strong gust of wind blows at the top of the building, making the warrior's clothes flap. Taking in the view from way up there, he sees a massive city, insanely detailed and lit up. Down at the cobblestone street level, the citizens walk around peacefully, without noticing the threat lurking above. Blown away by how good the graphics look, the young man decides he's going to enjoy every second of the run. A wide, genuinely happy smile spreads across his face as he soaks in the game's whole atmosphere. Shattering the quiet, a mysterious woman's voice calls out the MC's name. Popping out of nowhere, a blonde girl named Christina warns him that their new mission has an extremely high risk of going south. Playing along, he shoots back asking when any of their jobs have ever been safe. Then, the guy realizes with shock that his character is responding on its own, thanks to the game's tutorial script. Finding the mechanics awesome, he notices that even his voice got a filter to match the mercenary role better. Staring at her partner in crime, the young woman looks stressed about the approaching danger. The virtual body keeps talking on autopilot, stating that whoever chooses to take others out must be ready to meet their maker. Agreeing with the logic, the blonde tells him to stay sharp and warns that the targets might be watching the perimeter. Telling the girl to chill and wait for him at the tavern, the warrior just casually yeets himself off the giant wall. In the quick goodbye cutscene, a dossier with the mission intel is slapped into the mercenary's hands. Repeating the guild's motto, the shadow agent declares that things aren't what they seem and must always be questioned. Free movement is handed back, and the guy smiles, feeling like the real challenge is about to begin. Gripping his lethal blade, Xiaojun looks super hyped about the chaos he's about to cause. With a massive leap, the young man sprints across the rooftops, cutting through the night sky like a flash. Maximizing his insane agility, he pulls off a flawless jump over the gap between the houses. The landing happens strategically on a glass skylight, illuminating the floor below. Smashing through the glass using gravity, he drops straight into the mansion's hall in a rapid freefall. With tactical vision, the newbie scans the area below, already prepping for a fight. The tutorial quickly notifies him that aim assist has been turned off, getting a surprised gasp out of the kid. With full manual controls back, the young man plans his route and chooses to push through the dimly lit hallway. However, when checking the zone, he spots that his intended path is blocked by an unbreakable barrier. The hint pop-up suggests using a nearby iron pipe, and he wonders if he'll have to climb using pure upper body strength. Following the prompt, the guy reaches up and grabs onto the metal bar tightly. Instantly, an invisible mechanic pulls him up, making him perform a sick acrobatic flip. Nailing the move flawlessly, he lands on his feet on the upper floor, wrapped in a blue particle effect. Mind blown by his own virtual moves, the young man sees that the character did it automatically and praises the system's deep immersion. Figuring out the game's engine, he assumes the best way to handle assisted commands is to just relax his real body. The main objective updates on the HUD, demanding the elimination of a corrupt and powerful noble. Reading the massive wall of text from the system, Seojin realizes the only thing that matters is taking out that boss. Looking at the virtual compass, he loves the fact that the game holds his hand, showing the exact path he needs to take. Reaching the edge of a roof, the game tells him to use a long rope to slide down to the next level. Ziplining down the thick rope, the kid comments that the devs made a really solid and easy-to-understand tutorial. Right then, a wicked grin pops up on his face, plotting a completely unhinged idea. Deciding curiosity wins, he wonders what would happen if he just let go before reaching the bottom of the rope. Seojin asks himself if he's forced to slide all the way, and the prompt says jumping is faster, right as he starts free-falling. Ditching the rope halfway down, the MC makes his own avatar take a massive fall on purpose. The fall damage is brutal, kicking up a dust cloud and smashing whatever was on the ground. Tanking the heavy impact, the warrior decides that was definitely not a big brain move. Suddenly back in the real world, he notices some movement on his streaming dashboard. The chat starts flaming him for his embarrassing fail, reminding the guy that he is broadcasting live. Startled, he sees that 4 viewers are already watching the stream and can't figure out how he pulled people so fast. Since he assumed he'd have 0 viewers at the start, the young man apologizes for the long dead air. Reading the chat, the newbie finds the user's username super weird and suspects they're just Tiwoo's buddies. Remembering his roommate's tips, he thinks about what he needs to do to keep those few people from leaving. The veteran advised that early on, the play is to just talk to yourself so the stream isn't dead silent and to ignore the viewer count. The core pillar for grinding on streams is exactly keeping up a constant flow of communication with whoever is watching. Viewers who hang out in smaller channels do it to get noticed, since in big streams messages get buried instantly. Motivated to follow the advice, Seojin tries to strike up a chill conversation with the 4 people in chat. Admitting to the crowd that he really is a beginner, he promises to stop stalling and focus straight on the mission objective. The screen pans over Count Etter's massive estate, lit up by an eerie blood moon. Reaching the destination in no time, the kid interacts with the comments regarding the mansion's creepy vibe. Not sure where to start, he asks if he should just breach the front, and gets told to check the intel document from earlier. Remembering that crucial clue, the young man pulls the dossier out of his inventory. The note pinpoints the target's location and warns that there are at least 20 guards locking down the premises. Checking his own loadout, he quickly draws the thin blade hidden inside his cane. Along with that, the shadow agent flexes a heavy gauntlet shining on his combat arm. Rocking only this starter gear, the player figures that's plenty to wipe the villain off the map. Pocketing the clue, he says with total confidence that his weapons will get the job done easily. Panicking over the streamer's choice, the chat starts spamming, begging him to drop that crazy idea. Missing the overly dramatic vibe, the MC just questions why everyone in the comments is freaking out so much. Noticing the mood shift in chat, he finds it weird that people are claiming getting wiped is part of the game's learning curve. Asking if it wouldn't be easier to just push the main entrance, the guy gets confused reading gamer slang. The game is heavily built around stealth, so trying to go in guns blazing gives the map's enemies a massive advantage. This wild strat of trying to fight everyone head-on is exactly what the player base dubbed a suicide run. Interested in the challenge, Seojin asks if it's literally impossible to clear it that way and finds out no one has ever pulled it off. The chat explains that many veterans grinded it for hours and raged quit, leaving the achievement only for server legends. Hearing the champion's title brought up again makes the MC take a step forward, fully grasping the scale of the challenge. Fueled by his own confidence, the warrior decides he's going to try and clear the raid using this insane method. The mansion's grand front doors await the breach, while the moon bathes the area in a crimson glow. Walking toward the confrontation, the newbie admits that the castle's atmosphere is pretty intimidating up close. Still, his focus remains laser-sharp and completely locked onto the mission goal. Watching him push up, the chat starts placing bets on how fast the newbie is going to get brutally stomped by the guards. One chatter even asks if the beginner understands just how busted the legend's skill level is that he's trying to copy. Keeping his cool, the kid calculates that the strat will work, as long as he doesn't get too cocky. A pair of heavily armed guards is holding down the property's main gate. Spotting his sloppy approach, one of the guys yells, demanding the trespasser to identify himself. Getting busted immediately, the young man plays it cool and says he's already figured out the game's loop. The chat is dying of laughter, convinced that all this ego is about to result in a fast and embarrassing game over. Not waiting for any more talking, the guard charges in pissed off and swings a heavy attack with his blade. Surgically analyzing the enemy's animation, the warrior's eyes gleam, predicting the trajectory perfectly. With flawless reflexes, he parries the opponent's sword, triggering a piercing metallic clang. Capitalizing on the massive opening, the MC throws a quick slash, hitting the guard cleanly. The impact of the counter sends the enemy stumbling back, leaving him wide open and totally off balance. Watching the trade, the chat goes crazy asking if that was a parry, making the newbie curious about the hype. Evaluating the critical damage dealt, Xiaojun admits he didn't fully grasp the underlying mechanics of that system move. Watching the guard's HP melt, he wonders if these starter mobs were specifically coded to be this squishy. Instantly, the other knight rushes in screaming furiously, looking for payback for his fallen squadmate. Applying the same finesse as before, the swordsman deflects the second swing, popping a blue light effect. Hyped by that tech, the viewers start accusing the young man of being a pro player on a Smurf account. The crowd argues that hitting perfect blocks back-to-back is insane and had to be pure luck. While the second enemy drops defeated, the MC thinks about the term the chat won't stop spamming. Watching the enemy's model fade out, the guy turns his attention back to his small audience. Tilting his head, the newbie asks with total innocence what the heck the word parry actually means. The chat completely loses it, confirming he pulled off the game's hardest mechanic without even knowing it was a thing. Chilling in his pod, the young man tells the chat to stop arguing and just explain what the term means. Reading the detailed replies, he finally gets that blocking right on impact stuns the opponent. The comments point out that even retired pros mess up parry timings, leaving the newbie surprised it's considered that hard. Flashing back to his brutal training from the past, he compares modern gamers' skills to what he had in his old life. The warrior understands that reading someone's moves and timing a perfect block requires insane body-reading skills. Telling chat he now gets how the mechanic works, he gets flooded with more pleas to drop the frontal assault idea. Ignoring the warnings about the bloodbath waiting for him, the young man takes on a dangerously stubborn stance. Taking another step toward the fortress, he asks why everyone is suddenly so worried about his HP bar. Swinging his blade with swagger, the newbie refuses to back down, while chat argues over whether he's actually goated or not. Reading one specific message praising his fluid movement, the MC's expression drops, getting dead serious. Without missing a beat, other users start flaming the guy who complimented him, dragging the young man's skills. Seeing the beef in the comments, he realizes his only defender instantly became the butt of the joke. This triggers his dark past, back when his wins were invalidated purely because of his background. Knowing the situations are different, he feels fired up to prove exactly what he's made of to that crowd of haters. Brushing off the memories, the swordsman pushes forward confidently to breach the fortress and shut the trash talkers up. Confronting the intruder's audacity, a squad of armed guards screams at him to stop moving. The warrior grips his weapon tightly and figures that the rules for a solid brawl are pretty much always the same in the end. Drawing his stealth blade, he doubles down that the nature of the obstacle in his way is completely irrelevant. Going on the offensive, the young man dashes at top speed, declaring his results will do the talking. With a nimble jump, he lunges at a soldier trying to smash him with a heavy steel mace. The warrior's gaze sharpens with extreme focus as he calculates the perfect frame to impact the strike. Unleashing a devastating attack, the newbie shatters the enemy's guard, releasing an impressive burst of raw power. The clash between the blade and the mace creates multiple rapid hit markers, leaving chat totally lost in the sauce. Hitting the perfect window, the newbie drops a clean strike that fills the screen with flashy visual effects. Unable to tank the hit, the guard is sent flying in a stupidly aggressive way. Riding the chaotic flow of combat, Xiaojun slices through another knight with a fast and lethal tech. With the perimeter secured, he stops calmly near the staircase, surrounded by the wrecked guards. Flexing his dominance under the red moon, the warrior taunts them, saying they should have sent a whole battalion of warrior monks if they wanted a shot. The viewers are freaking out, asking if the account is a smurf, while the surviving enemies cry out for backup. Destroyed by the force of the counter, one of the knights spits red pixels and drops permanently to the ground. Shaking off the tension post-fight, the young man takes a deep breath and sheathes his weapon. Wasting no time, he marches firmly down the halls to keep his invasion of the estate rolling. Analyzing everything chilly, the kid tells the viewers he's already wiped 6 targets since the lobby. Reading the crowd doubting he's a noob, the newbie insists he is, pointing to his dumb jump off the roof as proof. A toxic viewer trolls the stream and asks to get banned, making the MC confused by the weird request. Without thinking twice, he permabans the annoying guy on the spot, and the chat cracks up, hyping up his savage move. Right then, Xiaojun remembers his past life, when he used to dodge fights and hide so his bloodline wouldn't hunt him down. However, you couldn't hide such insane talent forever, and he eventually rose up as the unmatched sword god. The old fear of drawing attention stemmed from the abuse he took from cruel masters during his years as a slave. Back to the stream, the crowd is begging the kid to drop the secret on how to time those parries perfectly. Joking around, the MC claims the only trick you need is remembering your past life experiences. Right after, he adds that watching the opponent's shoulders and using a straight slash works every time, leaving the chat speechless. The chat quickly starts booing the useless tip, while the newbie finds the viewers' rage hilarious. Cutting the jokes short, more knights spot the intruder, and the MC finds it funny that the whole mob aggroed at once. The long, dark hallway gets packed with heavily armed soldiers body-blocking the target's path. Ignoring the comments saying winning was mathematically impossible, the warrior smirks and challenges his own chat. He offers to put on a show, asking if chat wants to see a mere noob hit 13 perfect parries back-to-back. Panicking, the guards yell, trying to keep the squad in line, since they're only dealing with a single solo invader. Bursting into a dash, the swordsman charges the enemy platoon at a speed that breaks the game's logic. Sprinting straight into the danger zone, he readies his sword, showing unnatural chill in the face of an absurd disadvantage. The first soldier takes a clean hit and roars in pain, as his stance is completely shattered by the blow. Weaving through the mobs, the young man dodges blades and just keeps slicing up whoever steps up. The warrior's laser-focused eyes track every micro-movement from the enemies, swarming him in the hall. After pulling off a flawless dodge, he blows the audience's minds, cementing their theory that this is a pro's alt account. Blinded by rage over the squad wipe, a heavy shield knight rushes in, swearing aggressively at the newbie. Using the enemy's own momentum, Xiaojun spins his body, shifting his weight rapidly to his other leg. Executing a blistering strike, he smashes the armored opponent, setting off a flood of bright sparks. The violent impact ruins the guard's balance, leaving him dizzy and wide open due to the unexpected heavy hit. A rapid, lethal combo zeroes out the remaining troops' HP, clearing the entire zone in one go. With the sweep complete, the young man turns his face, showing he has absolutely no doubts about how heavy his skills are. Outside the game, a guy jumps out of his gaming chair, completely stunned by the gameplay he just witnessed. Mind blown, the fan asks out loud who this mystery player is, 0% convinced he's actually a beginner. This specific viewer is notorious on the community boards for being obsessed with hardcore, impossible runs. Back in the day, the dev studio challenged the player base, claiming that breaching the mansion through the front door was not viable. That cocky taunt from the devs only fueled the guy's urge to break the impossible record. However, the punishing mechanics and the stage's difficulty completely crushed anyone who tried to brute force it. The online community laughed at any content creator who dared to try the front door strat. Gamers treated the frontal assault meta as an unreachable meme that was purely a joke. Tons of pro streamers wasted hours crawling in the dark because of how busted the detection system was. Disappointed by all the past fails, the viewer had pretty much given up on ever seeing a successful frontal clear. But the universe had a colossal surprise lined up to completely flip the history of that game mode. Shaking with hype, the fan celebrates, clenching his fists as he witnesses the mythical suicide run actually working. He's jaw-dropped realizing that this god-tier gameplay is coming from a stream with barely any followers. High on someone else's epic clutch, the guy spams the chat, praising the newbie as the literal god of stealth. On stream, the mountain of defeated guards proves the wipeout, while the entire chat loses their minds. Keeping his calm persona, the warrior reads the accusations trying to explain away his unreal reflexes. Smirking at their saltiness, he downplays the flex, noting that dodging and parrying is literally the easiest thing ever. Seeing so much ego in the reply, the die-hard fan just stares blankly, finding the player's attitude completely bizarre. Rubbing his sword hilt on his head, Xiaojun threatens to end the stream right there if chat doesn't stop crying about his skill. Checking the view counter, he sees he retained all 6 original people and considers the start to be highly productive. Suddenly, the deafening sound of heavy doors getting smashed open shatters the peace in the hall. The sound of massive footsteps echoes in the room, letting the audience know the dreaded final boss has entered the chat. A monstrous attack craters the floor, but the MC manages to dodge at the absolute last millisecond, using pure reflex. Letting out a sinister laugh, the Count calls the kid trash, while the viewers have zero hope he can clutch this. Sliding across the polished floor, the swordsman creates distance to read his new opponent's attack patterns. Swinging his weapon violently, the villain sends out red wind slashes that tear the whole environment apart. The MC blocks the crushing blow, but takes chip damage due to the insane pressure from the enemy's weapon. Unable to completely nullify the energy, the kid skids backward, letting out a grunt of pain from the hit. With a sadistic look, the villain mocks the struggle and asks what the little rat thinks he can do. Xiaojun's face darkens when he notices his hits barely even scratch the enemy's massive health bar. Reading the comments, the young man calmly asks if it's possible to parry a giant flail. The crowd trolls him, thinking he wants to one-shot the boss. Triggered by the intruder's audacity, Eder charges in, spinning his mace furiously, and yells for the brat to feel the weight of his weapon. The warrior capitalizes on the slow animation and quickly backs off while the flail shreds the stone floor. With a super agile leap, he takes to the air, dodging another heavy swing from the noble. Hovering midair, the MC rapidly deflects a barrage of attacks, creating a shower of sparks. Giving no breathing room, the villain spins his chained weapon, creating a deadly out-y zone around himself. Trying to get out of the hitbox, Xiaojun jumps even further back, landing safely away from the destructive flail. Laughing like a maniac, the boss warns that his efforts are useless, claiming to be immortal because of how little damage he's taking. The exchange of blows creates a massive wave of green light that illuminates the boss arena. Skidding to a halt, the young man realizes the DPS from his basic sword isn't going to be enough to drop the boss. Pondering the issue, he wonders if just spamming normal attacks would be enough to end the fight without getting wiped. Just then, a virtual timer pops up showing 4 minutes with an imminent game over warning. The kid doesn't get the mechanic. With no time to overthink, he reflexively blocks another insane swing coming his way. The villain taunts the guy's distraction again, asking what he's staring so hard at on his screen. Noticing the pressure from the clock, the MC accepts that bursting down that monster before time runs out is impossible with standard combat. Analyzing the ticking clock, the young man decides to aim for weak spots, and chat confirms that focusing hits on one spot multiplies the damage. Getting this god-tier tip from the chat, the newbie figures it's the perfect time to test the strat. He drops a quick thanks to the viewers for the tip, and winds up his next push with extreme focus. Launching off hard, the swordsman jumps impressively high, hitting a blind spot in the noble's field of view. Delivering a clean, surgical slash, he lands a solid hit on the boss, shaving 70 HP off the enemy. The villain's health bar melts much faster, proving to the warrior that the stream's advice was spot on. Furious about the shift in momentum, Eder curses the invader and tries to regain his broken posture. With only 2 minutes left on the clock, the kid narrows his eyes, knowing any mistake here means a trip back to the lobby. Kicking off a relentless assault, he overwhelms the Count with incredibly fast strikes, leaving Chat mesmerized by the sheer aggression. Suppressed by the storm of attacks, the villain grips his weapon's handle with both hands and insults the kid, calling him a bug. Losing hope in the clash, the noble screams, ordering the kid to drop his sword immediately. Ignoring the yells, Xiaojun lands a heavy blow right on the villain's face, making him grunt in pure rage. With just 1 minute left before failing the raid, the corrupt noble eats another crushing slash and groans in agony. An absurd flurry of cuts rapidly chunks hundreds of health points, making the audience question if the player is even human. Finishing the combo, the newbie lands gracefully back on the ground, while the viewers wonder if the boss is even breathing. Turning his head calmly, the warrior announces that just one more hit will do it. The chat explodes with pure hype. The timer reads 51 seconds left when a red flash seals the Count's fate for good. The camera pans out to show the mansion's facade, bathed in the intense glow of the blood moon. In the now quiet and dark hall, the end of the grueling boss fight is finally declared. Down on the ground and heavily damaged, the villain points a finger and accuses the newbie of being a fake imperial dog. The defeated opponent coughs up red pixels and furiously swears he won't meet his end in that room alone. The system announces in giant letters that the game's initial breach was a total success. Far away from the game, a fan's hands are frantically clicking a mouse in a lit room. The young man's monitor replays the glorious clip, where the beginner stomped the noble using nothing but precise parries. The shot reveals the modest apartment complex, wrapped in the quiet darkness of the night. Gripping his mouse intensely, the hyped-up kid swears that what he just watched was an absolute masterpiece of unhinged gaming. Sitting in a trance at his PC, the fan admits it's unreal that the world-first clear of that stage happened live on stream. Scrolling down, he finds endless threads of people losing their minds over the newbie's surreal mechanics. The in-game camera cuts back to the boss room, lighting up the rubble under the moonlight. Doubling down on his trash talk, the heavily damaged noble keeps insulting the warrior who beat him. Tearing his own clothes apart like an absolute madman, the villain triggers his final, self-destructive trump card. The young swordsman's eyes go wide, instantly realizing the tragedy the Count just set up. Suddenly, multiple scarlet magic rings light up the arena floor, trapping both characters. The spell goes off instantly, spawning a monstrous firestorm that engulfs the entire room. The spell's knockback blasts the guy far away, obliterating all the stained glass windows on that floor. Spinning through the night sky trying to break his fall, the warrior curses the villain for blowing himself up along with the house. Meanwhile, a massive platoon shows up in the ruins, spotting the kid covered in crimson fire. The guy's face shows total exhaustion and pure anger at how relentless this endless aggro is. Under the blood-red lighting, the militia sweeps the forest, shouting orders to track down the fugitive. Finding no other path, the shadow agent intentionally dives down a rocky ravine to try and lose the mob. The rough landing kicks up dirt as he digs his boots in hard to break on the steep slope. Doing a quick shoulder check, the young man anxiously checks if the horde is still on his tail. He goes back to sprinting for his life at max speed, leaving a sick blue light trail in his wake. However, the MC makes a terrible misstep and loses his footing on the edge of a slick cliff. Failing to find a grip on the rock, he loses his balance and slides straight into the mountain's dark gorge. Grasping at thin air, he plummets toward the raging river while the soldiers watch from the top of the ravine. Hidden in the shadows of the trees, a silhouette wearing a raven mask watches the freefall without making a single sound. The character hits the rough waters with a hard thud, sinking into the violent foam with zero resistance. The sun peaks over the horizon, lighting up the mountain valleys, signaling the end of that crazy night. Washed up by the relentless current, the swordsman ends up on the shallow edge of a peaceful, gravel-filled stream. The avatar's arm lies motionless under the clear, calm river water in that isolated spot of nature. The hero's rugged boot is tossed in the mud on the bank, proving the insane level of fatigue stacked up during the escape. Showing zero signs of being awake after the brutal impact against the water, the young man is left sprawled face down on the shore. Walking over without making a single sound, a hooded figure approaches the MC's body. Holding a mystic item, the person casts a bright golden light that pushes the morning fog away from the riverbank. The screen subtly notifies that the player is getting his vision back, revealing the incredibly peaceful face of the man who healed him. Reading the viewers crying and mourning over the cinematic damage scene, the newbie shows absolutely zero interest in the lore. Lacking any empathy for the NPCs, he comments that he'd just use his sword to parry the fall damage, baiting chat into flaming him. Laughing at chat's outrage, the guy claps his hands loudly, showing he just wants to skip the tutorial cutscene already. Ignoring the crowd's virtual tears, he strikes a cocky pose and asks his viewers where he's supposed to head next. Checking the quest log, the MC reads the name Christina out loud and figures he needs to find the tavern. Standing in front of the place's wooden door, he notices the game already teleported him there as soon as the cutscene ended. Keeping the momentum, the young man casually strolls right into the establishment. The interior is a super busy spot, packed with people drinking and chatting. Doing a quick sweep of the back, the kid spots his guildmate sitting alone waiting for him. Locking onto the woman's model, he instantly realizes she's the NPC mapped to hand out the next quest. The blonde has a serious look with a slight hint of sadness, while the tavern's lamps light up her face. Greeting the NPC, the newbie tries to play nice and asks if she needs a hand with anything around there. Christina immediately answers that she has an urgent, life-or-death case that needs to be handled fast. Then, the kid holds up a shiny artifact in his hand, getting surprised when he sees the auto-dialogue system kick back in. Staring at the glowing gem, the NPC's eyes go wide, and she enters a state of total shock upon seeing the drop. Seized by panic, she grabs the guy's hands out of nowhere, losing her voice over the item he just showed. Driven by suspicion, the girl presses the newbie, demanding to know the mystery guy's true identity. Trying to de-escalate, the warrior tells the NPC to chill, claiming he came there with good intentions. Oozing confidence, the character states that his tracking skills surpass anyone else's in the entire region. Freaked out, the girl asks if the guy knows who she is, and wonders if he's the secret informant sent from the west side. The newbie quickly confirms her theory, following up by asking if his clout was already spreading over there. Through all the city's back alleys, the rumors about a guy who takes on any job for gold were already notorious. Yielding to the facts, Christina says they both need to share their names to lock in the contract. Straight to the point, the NPC drops her name and immediately asks what the stranger's secret alias is. Right then, a server prompt pops up demanding the player to create his gamer tag for the virtual world. Reading the hyped comments, the kid sees that the stream viewers are also super eager to find out what his new nick will be. Pulling up his own menu data, he notices the system defaulted to his real-life name for the account. Wanting to reclaim his original peak, the young man chooses to roll with the classic alias he rocked during his lethal past. Looking the NPC dead in the eye, he introduces himself as Nameless, making the chat absolutely die of laughter at the edgy choice. Ignoring the crowd's trolling, the MC reminds himself that this exact title turned him into the most feared being alive. Staying focused, the young man locks in his decision on the system panel, without hesitating for a second. The screen flashes to validate the registration, and the tavern character accepts the dark reveal without any questions. Switching topics, the swordsman asks the blonde what method he should use to ping her in the future. Getting back to business, the girl cuts him off saying she urgently needs to track down the guy who owned that gold brooch. Keeping up his cold persona, the warrior bluntly tells her the guy is already 6 feet under in the port district, crushing Christina's hopes. In response, she hands him a rough black stone, explaining that the artifact works as a secure long-distance comms device. The UI confirms the magic item was looted, and the player inspects the small black rock with total patience. Putting all her faith in the shady guy's help, the woman drops the heavy burden of the new quest into the warrior's hands. Stepping out of the shop, the guy casually walks down the streets, enjoying the sick orange vibe of the digital sunset. Stretching his avatar's body, the young man figures he's cleared all his dailies for the game and decides to log off. Briefly talking to his chat, the newbie says his fans can make up whatever nickname they want for him, and announces he's wrapping up the VOD. Saying bye in a stiff, robotic way, he taps the floating menu with his finger to end his streaming session. Dropping back into the real world inside his rig, the beginner fumbles through the menus trying to locate the right tab to save his account progress. Night has already taken over the city with its lights, leaving Xiaojun's humble apartment super dark and quiet. Checking his stats on the dashboard, the guy gets hyped seeing that all 6 viewers stayed for the whole stream without closing the tab. Remembering the goofy usernames of those day one supporters makes the exhausted kid genuinely laugh at the inside jokes. Out of nowhere, a notification ping breaks the room's silence, catching the guy's eyes. The system shows an absolute avalanche of users just raided his offline stream, leaving the newbie completely lost. Grabbing his phone, the MC checks his dashboard, trying to make sense of the flood of viewers on his channel. He thinks the initial feedback wasn't that bad and is already brainstorming what kind of content to grind tomorrow night. Right then, Tiwu kicks the door open, screaming his buddy's name, jump-scaring the kid so bad he drops his phone. Pissed at the dramatic entrance, Xiaojun gets out of bed grumbling, asking if his friend lost whatever manners he had left from dinner. Ignoring the rant, the veteran shoves his phone in his friend's face, furiously demanding an explanation for the current state of his chat. Reading the text, the beginner thinks it's totally surreal that the platform is still farming thousands of views, even with the stream offline. Dumbfounded by the massive clout he gained in a snap, he wonders if that dashboard isn't just glitched. Chilling comfortably on the bedroom mattress, Tiwu says he's pretty sure he knows what really triggered this massive hype on the channel. He flips his phone around, showing a direct link to a post, guaranteeing that the viral clip guy is, without a doubt, the newbie. The forum recording highlights the newbie's insane clutch, destroying over 10 guards back-to-back and perfectly parrying their attacks. Shocked, his roommate asks how the newbie survived so effortlessly, and how the heck he got people to promote him without spending a dime. Not getting the platform lingo, the young man points at the screen, demanding his buddy explain what this promotion stuff is about. Pulling up the site's message tab, Tiwu clarifies that it was that loyal, game-addicted viewer who uploaded the viral content. Checking the community's crazy engagement, he notes that the post would easily smash the 30-like threshold required. Smiling with hype, the roommate explains that hitting the goal pushes the post straight to the front page, skyrocketing his follower count. Flexing his platform knowledge, the veteran says he's going to sleep, and tells his buddy to do the same after a long grind in the rig. Left alone with his thoughts, the young man processes the absolute whirlwind of unlikely stuff that went down during those few hours of streaming. Glancing at his phone screen one more time, the kid notices the likes ticking up and realizes just how overpowered the fan-driven algorithm is. Defeated by heavy eyelids, the beginner tosses his smartphone on the counter, agreeing it's best to leave the rest of the grind for tomorrow. As he rolls over onto his back, countless reply notifications blow up his phone screen without giving it a break. Time flies and a beautiful morning light hits the modest housing block on their street. Proving his roommate's prediction right, the post shatters the like goal and completely takes over the community forum's front pages. Sitting at his PC monitor, the young man notices the post blew up so much that people are starting random heated arguments in the replies. Surprisingly, one specific thread catches the newbie's eye, making his expression freeze in pure confusion. The thread cooks up a theory that the final boss's AI completely changed its behavior out of nowhere, for no apparent reason. Totally out of the loop, Xiaojun tries to figure out why this crowd is starting drama over a simple machine's personality switch. The forum post mentions that the champion's clone was always programmed to be respectful and would wait if the player dropped their weapon. However, breaking its hard-coded honor rules, the AI was now fighting with an absolutely unhinged and cruel moveset. One salty user shares his tragic run, complaining that the bot just rushed his blind spot and completely humiliated him. And the cherry on top was the digital clone actually BMing the losers while they were down on the floor. Reading thousands of replies flaming the newbie for being toxic because of a bot, the young man facepalms, sighing at the headaches fame brings. He comes to the conclusion that the AI only picked up the trolling and the swagger because he was casually chatting with his buddy while gaming. Weighed down by the false accusations, the guy laments how unfair it is to take the heat and get a bad rep without actually doing anything wrong. Right after, he reads on the forum that some of the big brain users are already connecting the dots and suspect he's the infamous newbie from the tutorial speedrun. Noticing that the persistent fan was the one who started leaking the actual rumors, the young man laughs, questioning that specific user's psychic abilities. Leaning back in his chair, the guy admits to himself that not even in his wildest dreams did he expect to farm this much clout so fast. With a deeply focused look, he wisely judges that getting showered in glory all at once never ends well in the long run. Standing up thoughtfully, the hero reiterates that he learned this bitter lesson the hard way in his past life. Staring at the massive rig taking up space, the swordsman figures that too much unchecked power is nothing but a massive dose of poison. Focused on leveling up without skipping the grind, the fighter sets his one personal goal to secure small, consistent gains every day. The young hero's eyes project an admirable coldness, proving he's not afraid of the boss fights coming his way. A blue flash overtakes his vision as the rig syncs his senses with the game's central neural network. Checking his account stats, he's blown away seeing his follower count spiked exactly the way his friend predicted. Despite this massive jump in virtual numbers, the beginner smiles remembering that only the half dozen from the first stream actually witnessed it all live. Hitting the record button, the guy cracks a slight smirk, guessing how many people were going to join his lobby today. After a quick setup, the software pops the notification confirming the official stream for the server's newest stealth god is live. The main title card highlights the legendary imperial capital of Altian as the next sandbox for today's daily missions. A quick drone shot of the majestic metropolis shows historic buildings wrapped in a creepy, oppressive fog. The voiceover explains that the colossal zone is split between the royal castle, the magic spire, the rich nobles, and the grimy stone slums. Flashing a dirty blade, the system explains that players can either take on contract hits or just go on a rampage against civilians in the plaza. Morning breaks over the cobblestones, revealing the incredibly basic routine of NPCs wandering to work. As soon as the POV switches to the warrior, he gives a charismatic smile, waving and welcoming the dozens of new fans in the chat. The comment box gets flooded with thousands of people, hyping up the fact that they're finally watching their newbie idol live. Catching the chat's questions, he owns up to being the guy from the controversial clip and reminds his fans he didn't pay a dime for that god-tier promo. Out of nowhere, a fan drops a huge dono demanding a carry and pro tips to beat that annoying castle boss. Stunned by the wallet drop, the young man says a huge thank you for the support, pairing it with a cocky pose and a super smug look. The guy's sudden ego trip triggers the chat, sparking a wave of trash talk telling the kid to be grateful for the struggling fans' real money. Realizing he stepped on chat's toes, the hero backpedals fast, promising to drop a tutorial so he doesn't look bad to the guy who tipped. He explains that to completely humiliate the boss, you have to relentlessly spam attacks on the exact same weak spot, ruining the enemy's poise instantly. The crowd takes mental notes, and the guy who donated cries tears of joy saying he survived, getting some slightly sarcastic GGs from Siajan. Checking the thousands of accounts swarming his layout, the young man pulls up the dashboard to quietly analyze the live traffic. The tracker shows an unreal count of over 300 concurrent viewers, giving the inexperienced streamer a massive jump scare. Sweating bullets, he honestly admits that this counter just completely shattered all his chill expectations for his second stream. Forcing his focus back to the map, the MC checks out the sidewalks packed with NPC avatars and asks the crowd which objective they should rush this run. The screen glows with insane branching paths, highlighting just how much freedom the devs baked into the game. Reading a chaotic flood of wild ideas from random users, the hero begs for a second of silence to process the spam without actually losing his mind. Weighing the options between grinding bounties or exploring the whole city, he heavily praises how liberating the open-world design feels. Flashing a wide, dark grin, the guy decides in a split second what his first highly unethical job in the city is going to be. Looking down at the bustling market hub, the shadow agent hypes up the crowd, saying the stream is kicking off by picking some heavy pockets to get the show rolling. Walking down among the grimy locals, he slips into the shadows, focusing on spotting the wallets of slow-moving NPCs. However, a massive dude cuts through the peaceful crowd, shoving everyone aside to force his way through. Smacked by the thug's heavy arm, an elderly NPC takes a hard fall on the pavement, groaning in pain from the wipeout. Furious at the disrespect, the civilian curses the big guy's mom and tells him to watch where he's going with that massive hitbox. Showing zero emotion, the arrogant guy keeps his heavy steps going and just fades into the market crowd with absolute swagger. Watching it all happen right next to him in high def, the young man glares at the target on his right, instantly picking the bully as his next mark. Testing the game engine's physics the hard way, the kid notes that utilizing his past martial arts background makes the pickpocket mechanics way easier to pull off. Hyping up the crime spree, the viewers joke that the market VOD has officially been renamed to Advanced Martial Arts Robbery without losing loot. Laughing hard during the run, the hero guesses the real meta for stealing is farming aggro and kiting the knights in short skirmishes. So he figures internally that if he keeps up the hit-and-run tactics, he won't end up broke, while chat counts the hundreds of coins in his inventory. Killing the vibe, a thug's grating voice echoes through the dirty slum, demanding the young man submit completely on the spot. Turning his head, Seojin thinks there's a mix-up when he sees the weird duo walking up, and asks if these idiots want beef with him. The guys bluntly admit they do, pointing out that the kid's shady moves on that block didn't go unnoticed by the local underground. Blocking the alleyway, the duo warns there's a toll to be paid, leaving the warrior totally lost about this supposed turf tax. Holding up a small stash of gold with a chill vibe, he sarcastically asks if this is the only thing the goons are demanding. Answering bluntly, the crew agrees instantly, demanding a cut for the big bosses, which gets chat cracking up at the mob's audacity. Loving the unhinged open-world format, the kid cracks his knuckles and asks his live audience if wiping these two out would brick his run. The viewers reply, totally hyped, that going on a rampage and clearing the locals drops bonus loot after you crush the gang's leader in a boss fight. Locked in on the carnage, the newbie declares his shift has officially changed to doing a ruthless sweep of all the thugs in the zone. Fueled by pure toxicity, the viewers roast him for not being able to find the boss, but set the stage begging for maximum bloodshed and fast-paced brawling. In another dark spot not too far away, a boss yells at his crew that they need to track down the black sheep, because the rat has to be hiding in the rooms nearby. Snooping around the ruined hall, a bald guard with his sword drawn patrols the abandoned fortress, on high alert for the upcoming hunt. Exploiting the unlit areas right above the guards' heads, strong hands gripping daggers crawl along the thick pillars in a steady rhythm. Hiding in the bald enemy's blind spot, the famous veteran streamer Alpaca curses to himself, thinking he's going to mess up the stealth takedown for this stream. Desperate because of the terrible camera angle he picked on the pillar, the guy whines while his vintage candle's heat gauge goes up. A fat drop of wax drips right onto the bald guard, and the man looks up screaming insults at the invader for being dumb enough to get caught. The alert sound goes off, proving to the player definitively that his stealth run was completely bricked by his obvious lack of skill. The dark cutscene fades out to respawn him in the living world right in the middle of the slums, making the guy sigh heavily, drained from so many failed runs. Reliving the drama of his past wipes on his phone screen, the chat trolls him, counting 4 massive fails and making Alpaca fake a grateful smile. Lost in overcomplicated strats, the veteran swears that taking down the leader would be the play, but gets hit with the harsh truth from chat that the devs coded the main villain with temporary invincibility. This toxic leader who ruins the whole metropolis commands thousands of rats in what the player base officially calls the lethal fourth zone. Among this oppressive and insane tier of dark bosses are the mysterious female leader and the grand boss of the high tower spire. However, leading the bloody squad of so-called thugs with an iron fist is the imposing figure known as Drake. The mechanic that tilts everyone is the dozens of safe houses he rotates between, making any smart ambush against the local bosses a nightmare to plan. Holding the premium guide he bought from a paid channel to flex on rich noobs, the short-haired guy watches his chat debate furiously over where to go next. Stubborn about his own crazy strat, Alpaca hard focuses on hunting down the oppressive leader's actual safe house in a nearby district. Spawning into a forgotten auditorium, he's gifted with the massive pain of seeing an empty room, missing the boss's spawn yet again. The audience starts a toxic interrogation demanding answers, blatantly claiming that some random kid just crushed everyone using pure melee combat. Receiving unexpected donos, Alpaca finds the clips from the other channel confusing and puts his foot down, claiming that forcing fights triggers brutal anti-cheat wipes from the invisible source code. Refusing to back down, the crowd tells the streamer to check the official player forums to confirm it with his own arrogant eyes. Pulling up the browser on the side, The blonde guy reacts in pure shock when the dashboard proves the impossible actually happened live on camera by some incredibly cocky player. Drunk on the purest, most useless toxic competitive energy of the internet, the streamer promises to beat everyone without using stealth, telling his chat it's going to be a long night. Kicking what's left of his shattered ego after 4 deaths, some viewer drops big money betting on the streamer's humiliating wipeout right in front of his own subs. Completely blinded by rage, he bets his own reputation on a clash he thinks will be profitable, but swallows his words seconds later, terrified of what's to come. Deep fear hits the veteran as he watches his own lie snowball, with the audience roaring and heavily demanding his guaranteed, humiliating downfall on the internet. Scrapping together whatever dignity he has left in front of thousands of live viewers, Alpaca clears his throat awkwardly as he gets flooded by toxic comments from his chat. The overwhelming majority on the forums calls the fail before the fight even starts, knowing the washed streamer's endless flaws against the game's impossible hard caps. Panning the camera back to the dark alley, the sound of clashing iron and chipped weapons hitting the pavement shatters the boring silence of the night. Pure terror takes over the clan's turf, with dozens of guys getting launched by furious hits into the ancient walls, accompanied by endless screams from the panicked, battered squad. Pushing through the floors of the massive stone house with chill, calculated steps, the kid wrecks everyone in his path, leaving a massive trail of dropped loot in his wake. Proving that the slaughter and sweep here are barely even in Phase 1, the young man marvels at his own crazed audience, hyping them up over the insane multi-kills in his unreal run. Flashing back to before the absolute chaos started in the back streets, the MC stalks behind the slow-moving targets in the smelly old commercial hub. Watching the character trace the rat's path back to the annoying enemy's base, the crowd notices something sinister in the cold atmosphere. Seojun keeps hugging the edges of the roads, but chat flames his inefficient pathing, arguing it's a useless and empty strat against the area's tough informants. Hundreds of viewers casually explain the standard meta of doing favors for random villagers before the boss spawns, and he asks, freaked out, why the heck the gang has so much clout. Annoyed by the kid's innocent face and massive lack of game knowledge, the squad laughs hard, asking if he has any idea how brutal the game's overlord laws actually are. The massive fanbase falls over in an endless fit of laughter, judging Seojun's pure, clueless mind against the unreachable atrocities of the cursed, hostile zone. Tilted to the max by the user's easy laughs in his side UI, the cocky kid crosses his legs and demands clear, real explanations about the lore being discussed. The chat room brings up his slowpoke moment from the recent past when he didn't know parries existed, forcing the kid to openly admit he did a long late-night wiki dive yesterday. Pulling from his quick research, Seojun figures playing the nice guy for the oppressed isn't the play against such an unforgiving, oppressive syndicate of bandit NPCs in this hostile map. With this exhausting meta constantly knocking at his sharp mind, the fix was the classic universal language of violence, where thugs begged for mercy with no takebacks under a flurry of raw, bare-knuckle beatdowns. Cutting back to the stone alley, Seojun turns to face the duo with pure disrespect, politely demanding all their loot using a fake soft voice to mask his late-night robbery attempt. Laughing at his attempt to act tough, the thugs turn around mocking him, pointing out that the bag in question had already been stolen previously. The chat watches the absolute disrespect, and finds it hilarious seeing the scammer trying to extort the goons solo, acting like it's the easiest thing in the world. The newbie, losing his patience with the trolling, forcefully shoves the criminal's chest, demanding once again that the items be handed over immediately. Laughing at his cocky stance, the thugs ignore the warning completely, convinced the kid is just faking it because he's terrified. The main character's face shows extreme irritation as the thugs laugh at him, demanding the cash with a threatening tone. Giving zero cares about the lethal threat, the guy doesn't stall and demands to know exactly where the gang leader is hiding. The criminal gets pissed at the audacity and yells, full of indignation, that he'd never leak such premium intel to some random psycho. With the rejection obvious, Seojun tightens his leather glove, making it clear the talking phase is officially over. Flashing a sinister smile, he calmly announces he's about to dish out a beatdown to make them talk. The audience hypes up the incoming violence and notices the player's rage, as he reflects that throwing hands is the most universal language out there. The thief is totally thrown off by the arrogant attitude, frowning as he fails to process the cocky kid's absolute madness. Overcome by rage, the gang leader points his finger and orders his crew to jump the invader to teach him some manners. Reacting instantly to the threat, a red flash cuts through the air at terrifying speed. Moving like lightning through the narrow hallway, the swordsman casually steamrolls the frontline enemies. Unleashing a devastating AoE attack, he clears the thugs out of the way, creating a massive shockwave. Attempting a stealth attack, a criminal leaps out of the dark holding a dagger, screaming insults at the newbie with deep hatred. Flexing flawless reflexes, the fighter tracks the opponent's animation without showing a single ounce of panic. He shuts down the fatal strike effortlessly, blocking the enemy's knife using just his arm guard. Capitalizing on the opponent's broken posture, he slams the thug violently into the stone floor. After the brutal collision with the ground, the criminal screams in agony as his hitbox gets crushed against the alley's cobblestones. Right then, the MC already has his weapon raised, winding up for the next attack without giving the enemy a frame to breathe. Spotting his teammate on the ground, the red-haired mugger raises his sword in a fury, hurling the most hateful curses at the newbie. But before he can even finish his swing, Seojin tags him clean with a blazing fast, ruthless strike. Completely staggered, the criminal stumbles backward, letting out a painful groan, trying to process the unreal speed of the hit he just took. The warrior's eyes show cold calculation, purely focused on ending the team fight as fast as possible. Exploiting the dropped guard, the guy pushes in again and lands a terrifying vertical slash that shreds the enemy's chest armor. Unable to parry that much raw power, the red-haired guy loses his balance completely and starts collapsing. The dusk clears, showing Seojin standing in the middle of the silent alley, surrounded by the dropped loot of the defeated thieves. Watching the total wipeout, the chat goes wild, praising the player's mechanics and dropping memes about trying to replicate the combo. Absolutely humiliated, the last remaining goon is stuck kneeling on the ground, mumbling about the situation while shaking with fear. He tries to stand up straight, but his wrecked HP bar makes it obvious he has no stamina left to keep fighting. Casually gripping his dagger, the MC wastes no time and demands the exact coordinates of Drake's location. Being stubborn, the criminal spits his words, swearing he'd never leak his master's hideout under any circumstances. As an instant counter, the swordsman delivers a blistering strike that sends the thief into an absolute panic. With his weapon still pressed against the enemy, the guy demands info on Drake again, while the goon stutters in terror. The newbie demands an answer right then and there, but the chat jokingly reminds him the thief is hard-locked by the game engine and literally can't reply. Not giving a damn about the system's rules, the warrior drops another brutal hit just to make sure his message is clear. Shaking uncontrollably, the thug finally lifts a finger and leaks that the secret base is located on 13th Street. Satisfied with the intel, Seojin steps back and figures his target is hiding out in the biggest theater in that zone. Watching this interrogation method, the viewers are shook and immediately start calling the MC an absolute demon. Strolling casually, the player spins a short knife, mentioning that his starter weapon was too small and clunky. He scans the environment, looking for any better drops that might have been tossed in the alley's trash. Stumbling upon a heavy metal pipe, the guy shifts into a combat stance, hyped to realize the item is perfect for the job. Arriving at the new enemy base, a loud crash echoes through the air as the swordsman kicks off his breach, wrecking everything in his path. The surreal force of the swing sends several local guards flying like they have zero physics weight. Wielding the iron pipe with skill, Seojin drops heavy attacks, knocking out any goon dumb enough to enter his melee range. Using the flow of combat to his advantage, he does a fierce jump and brings the metal pipe down in an absolutely devastating vertical smash. With no way to guard, another minion drops to his knees, leaking red pixels heavily from the massive backstab damage. The main lobby of the massive theater is now dead silent, littered with the fallen bodies of the entire gang wiped by the beginner. The piece of metal drips red on the floor, proving just how chaotic and brutal the server wipe there really was. Resting the weapon on his shoulder, the guy sighs in exhaustion, complaining that the devs went overboard stuffing 30 mobs into one room. Shattering the room's quiet vibe, a booming voice echoes from above, laughing and praising the invader for his flawless clear. Suddenly, a sharp glint cuts through the air, signaling a stealth attack coming straight from the shadows on the ceiling. Spotting the incoming aggro, Seojin reacts instantly, locking his eyes on the threat closing in fast. Nimbly, he deflects the thrown weapon, creating a flash of sparks that lights up the theater's gloomy set. Up above, the mystery attacker's eyes widen, a bit shocked by the flawless parry from an invader he didn't recognize. Wasting no time, the opponent unleashes an absolute bullet hell of daggers, raining down on the player like meteors. Facing the barrage of hits, the MC grips the metal pipe's handle tightly, bracing for the devastating impact. Swinging the heavy iron bar to defend himself, he creates an insane shield capable of blocking the flurry of blades. Sparks fly everywhere as he parries every single strike, leaving the chat mesmerized by his superhuman frames. Satisfied with the skill check, the man lands softly on the ground, praising the solid tier of the invader's combat mechanics. He strikes an incredibly proud pose while showing off his razor-sharp blades, proving he has absolute confidence in his own DPS. Finally revealing himself as Drake, the supreme boss of the gang, he taunts the kid, asking if he has the skill to parry the next combo. Instantly, the boss dashes in with killer intent, firing off a massive wave of purple magic attacks across the empty room. The energy waves violently slice through the arena, cutting off almost every route the MC could use to dodge. Showing zero signs of panic, Xiaojun calculates the hitboxes, while the chat screams about the absurd amount of projectiles on screen. Spinning the iron pipe non-stop, the fighter deflects all the magic strikes with surgical, glitch-free precision. Capitalizing on the end of the ultimate attack, he rushes in and launches an uppercut using terrifying raw power. The brutal clash of metal against the boss's gear creates a deafening boom, making the old theater's entire geometry shake. Knocked back by the force of the collision, Drake looks completely shook, while the audience goes wild with hype. With the matchup under control, the swordsman flexes his dominance in the fight, making viewers wonder if there's an attack in the game he actually can't parry. Acknowledging the enemy's insane skill, the villain adjusts his glove in surprise and politely asks for the invader's gamertag. Keeping his signature chill vibe, the kid simply replies that he doesn't have a name, leaving the crowd stunned. Considering it a respectable answer, the boss praises his attitude and firmly states that overpowered warriors always deserve respect. However, the friendly tone vanishes fast when the boss cryptically announces he's going to unleash his true form. The opponent's aura completely transforms as he pulls out a scythe attached to a deadly chain, signaling Phase 2 has officially begun. Without dropping the tempo, the villain launches the heavy metal tip with terrifying speed straight at the kid's face. Keeping his eyes on the immediate threat, Xiaojun raises the iron pipe at the last possible frame, deflecting the fatal blow with total chill. The heavy collision between the weapons releases an intense flash of light, kicking up all the dust layered in the room. Moving at lightning speed, the newbie dashes across the grand hall, exiting the AoE danger zone instantly. Drake's lethal chain gives no breaks, pulling a tight curve midair and violently snapping back to try and slice the target again. But using unnatural agility, the guy completely iframes the entire massive, chaotic combo of acrobatic strikes unleashed by the boss. While chaining his flawless dodges, he thinks to himself that this new weapon's attack patterns are super easy to raid. The fighter's gaze never drops focus for a single frame, calmly tracking every micro-movement the gang leader makes. He soon figures out that this annoying chain spam is exactly what kept previous players from clearing the raid. Dropping the tension in his shoulders, the MC praises the devs' dedication for coding such a deep combat system. Noticing the intruder's excessive chill, Drake gets a little salty and asks why the kid isn't even trying to trade blows. Overflowing with killer intent, the villain declares he's taking the aggro and sprints across the wooden floor like an actual predator. Clashing with the player head-on, the boss unleashes a violent storm of slashes, infused with highly toxic magic. Keeping his arms stiff, Xiaojun uses his rusty iron pipe to tank the lethal combo without getting pushed back a single pixel. The endless clashing of metal lights up the dark, ancient theater, showing both of them in a fierce struggle for stage control. While bravely tanking the pressure of the heavy hits, the beginner admits this boss fight is way better than the mob rush earlier. Launching himself with a massive jump, the leader drops a colossal scythe attack, forcing the swordsman to eat the entire impact. However, showing the confidence of a pro, the kid parries the lethal strike, stating with absolute certainty that he already downloaded the boss's moveset to win. Winding up his attack, Drake mocks him, asking if just the invader and that scuffed weapon can handle the raid. Keeping his hostile stance, the villain furiously swears he'll never let the opponent get past him without a game over. Right then, a deafening sound echoes through the hall as the warriors clash weapons, radiating a powerful purple. Knocked back by the knockback energy, the leader is stunned to see the game engine registered a perfect block. Paying close attention to the mechanics, Seojin figures out that perfect parries one-shot trash mobs, but only grant a small stun window against bosses. Analyzing the enemy's guard, the MC notices the chains wrap around the villain's hitbox, making a clean, direct hit super tough. However, flexing pure confidence, the kid decides that this massive skill check doesn't apply to him at all. Gripping the iron bar tightly, the newbie concludes he just needs to execute the next input perfectly to secure the W. Planting his feet firmly on the ground, the swordsman recalls the thousands of times he drilled that exact stance to min-max his technique. Using his grounded base, he shifts all his weight and lower body strength into his upcoming heavy attack. A red energy starts swirling violently in the air, signaling the wind-up of a devastating, top-tier ultimate. Cloaked in the magic aura, the warrior raises his heavy iron bar, dropping into an absolutely flawless combat stance. Facing such suffocating pressure, Drake freezes in his tracks, staring at the raw power manifesting right in front of him. Spotting the perfect opening, Seojin Laser focuses his aim straight for the enemy's head, which had zero armor covering it. Showing no mercy, the guy brings the weapon down in an absolute vertical smash, wrecking the environment with a pink shockwave. Watching the execution up close, the chat loses its mind seeing the leader's head get crushed, spamming how easy he made the finisher look. Casually holding his weapon, Seojin admits he was a bit unsure because he was piloting a different model inside the VR engine. However, the game system itself handles calculating and auto-adjusting the exact foot placement for the user. On top of fixing his stance, the virtual AI also recalculates the perfect body rotation to output max DPS on impact. Wrapping up the aim assist, the arm trajectory gets a flawless correction mid-animation. Noticing the game's massive hand-holding, the MC relievedly concludes that your real-life build doesn't matter if the engine corrects your posture. Interrupting the kid's train of thought, a screeching metallic noise echoes in the hall, signaling a new attack animation is starting. Moving purely on reflex, the warrior backsteps at lightning speed, dodging the purple scythe that shatters the stone floor. Absolutely malding, Drake points his finger at the invader, flaming the kid with the max amount of toxicity he can muster. Blindly trying to turn the fight around, the boss spams a crazy barrage of magic slashes, demanding the kid just take the L once and for all. Moving with perfect frames, the fighter glides across the hall, iframing every single fatal projectile the enemy throws out. Capitalizing on a dropped frame in the opponent's combo, Seojin dashes like a flash, closing the gap between them in milliseconds. With a severe impact, the leader gets violently slammed into the ground, taking critical damage that kicks up a massive dust cloud. Seeing the humiliating wipeout, the crowd trolls the villain, claiming the same cheap trick wouldn't work twice. After dropping the enemy, the beginner plants his foot on the red carpet, gearing up to end the boss fight permanently. With his adrenaline maxed out, Seojin admits he's having an absurd amount of fun enjoying every second he swings his weapon. Showing pure hype on his face, he realizes his combat mastery is the only real proof left from his previous playthrough. Following up, the guy unleashes a massive finisher that slices the air, creating a deafening sonic boom in the room. The overwhelming pressure of the ultimate sends the arena's old swords flying into the air, as silence takes over the room once again. Completely obliterated by the ruthless combo, Drake lets out a groan of absolute agony as he drops to his knees on the theater floor. Confirming the gang leader's defeat, a massive beam of light illuminates the enemy base, signaling the brutal raid is cleared. The feared crime boss is now lying face down on the broken floor, with 0 HP left to continue the fight. Resting the weapon on his shoulder, the warrior reads the system prompt validating the W and dropping an order fragment as loot. The live chat completely crashes with followers calling him a god and dropping massive donos for the world-first clear. Startled by the loud sub-alerts, the swordsman looks at the chat overlay, totally confused by the crowd's hype. The guy is blown away seeing his concurrent viewer count and wonders when exactly his stream blew up to such unreal numbers. Outside, the sun starts to set, lighting up the crew's massive facility, while the dust from the boss fight finally settles in the hideout. Still frozen in the center of the room, the beginner tries to process the stats popping up on screen, absolutely stunned by his own carry. He notices the stream hit hundreds of concurrent views, surpassing even his total follower count. Clueless on how to handle all this sudden hype from the chat, the warrior just stares blankly at the screen, feeling his cheeks turn red from embarrassment. A quick flashback hits him, remembering the veteran yelling at him to sweat his hardest if he ever actually got viewers on his streams. Trying to hide his excitement, the MC tells himself to chill, but admits he can't hide his massive grin. Reading the messages praising his cracked mechanics, he curiously asks if clearing that boss was really a world-first achievement. The audience trolls back, dubbing the guy the metal pipe assassin, thanks to the meme weapon he picked for the raid. He drops a thank you for another huge dono, while chat cracks jokes about the sheer terror of getting bonked by that heavy iron bar. Bringing his focus back to the game, the swordsman holds up a finger and tells the viewers he still has one major lore question left. Staring at the pile of knocked-out goons across the theater, he asks why the city guards haven't spawned in yet to make the arrests. The chat laughs and explains that the game's police AI is super cowardly and refuses to raid hideouts during missions because they're terrified of the mobs. Finally understanding how the aggro system works in that zone, the kid tells his stream it's about time they extract from the area. With his cape blowing in the breeze, the newbie calmly strolls down the city's lit streets right after finishing his absolute bloodbath. Suddenly, a sweet voice calls the warrior by his gamer tag, making him instantly stop walking and go on high alert. Suspicious of the late-night ping, Seojun turns around, tracking the movement in the dark, quiet streets of the capital. Keeping his guard up, he demands to know exactly who's trailing him after all that chaotic aggro. A mystery NPC wearing a cloak steps out of the shadows, casually closing the gap with the hero. The girl pulls back her hood, revealing herself as Christina, and drops a GG for clearing the boss, while chat completely loses it over her character model. Handing over a bag of gold, the blonde girl shows her appreciation for him carrying the raid and weakening the gang's control over that sector. Handing the quest reward over, the girl repeats her thanks for the guy's hard carry in wiping the massive theater the mob had locked down. The hero grabs the shiny loot, while the game UI confirms his rep leveled up, along with a nice drop of in-game currency. Checking the VOD, the kid finds it weird that he got the loot drop without actually accepting the formal quest from the NPC beforehand. He thinks he doesn't even have a vendor to dump all that gold on, while chat assures him the engine always rewards the game's carries. Taking advantage of the random encounter, the swordsman asks the girl what the next main waypoint is for this hardcore run. Overflowing with charm, Christina turns around and jokingly asks if she really needs to spoon-feed all the lore to the newbie. Then she says she's gotta keep moving and logs off from the guy, promising their paths will definitely cross again. Quietly, the newbie watches the mysterious girl slowly fade out down the busy, sunlit street. After the girl's exit, Seojun turns his head, getting ready to pick his path for this intense endgame stretch. Looking at the massive griefing he caused on the street behind him, he reads a comment asking if that total wipeout counts as a stealth run. Annoyed by the troll, the kid insists he never agreed to that label, while the audience dies laughing at his absolute audacity to deny the obvious. Proud of the chaos he caused, the young man adjusts his gloves and announces he's cleared all his dailies, declaring the god-tier stream is about to wrap up. Panicking over the sudden outro, his followers spam the screen begging him to grind just a little longer before logging off to sleep. Ignoring the endless spam from the chat, the main character waves bye to the crowd before hitting disconnect. The server link drops, and the newbie's consciousness snaps back to reality inside his own dorm. Climbing out of the VR rig, he sighs in relief and stretches his exhausted body after such a long gaming session. Already chilling on his bed sipping water, the kid checks his smartphone while his roommate stares at him in dead silence. Breaking the awkward silence, Tiwoo calls out his buddy and demands to know why he's snooping around in someone else's room. Calmly, Seojun excuses himself saying he was just killing time on his break and decided to watch the veteran's stream to pass the hours. Tilted by the invasive behavior, his roommate shoots back that the room belongs to him too and complains about his buddy being overly obsessed with keeping the place tidy. Moments later, the swordsman is already standing near the PC setup when his buddy asks how the chat's vibes were during his stream. Staring at his phone screen, he says the hype was unreal and that they peaked at 400 concurrent viewers. Suddenly, Tiwoo dashes over and snatches the phone right out of the newbie's hand, dying to see the analytics. The screen plays the clip from the recent live, highlighting the exact frame the hero absolutely styled on the boss. The VOD shows the devastating ultimate that one-shot the target, while the chat memes about the absolute disrespect in the fight. Scrolling through the forum, the users are demanding to know who the mystery Smurf is and theory crafting about the unreleased loot drops. Analyzing the clip calmly, Seojin realizes the player base still has zero intel on that order fragment item. Curious about the hidden lore, he wonders if this drop is hard-locked behind playing on the absolute highest difficulty. Gripping the phone tight, the veteran streamer reads the chat's comments and, pissed off, demands they stop leaking private streams. Right then, Tiwoo hands the phone back, explaining that blowing up on the platform usually attracts a ton of unprovoked haters. Staying chill despite the warning, the hero listens to his partner ask if he enjoyed all that sudden clout. Grabbing his device, the newbie asks what the optimal strat is to manage this massive spike in viewership. His buddy points at the phone and mentions that the community has over 10,000 active users refreshing the threads right this second. Totally mind-blown by the stats, Seojin turns around and asks how he could possibly farm even more clout. Standing dead center in the room, he eagerly waits for his experienced buddy to drop some god-tier advice. The monitor displays a post trolling another player's failed run, telling him to just drop the impossible challenge entirely. Reading the tagged user in the post, the guy is totally lost and asks out loud who this alpaca guy even is. The community board shows the streamer's thumbnail where he swears he won't stop grinding the boss using that unhinged strat. Finding the cope hilarious, the beginner jokingly asks if his buddy is going to take the heat when the guy wipes again. Locked onto his own phone, Tiwoo suddenly grabs the kid's attention, completely shifting the topic of conversation. He brings up the streamer they just talked about, and mentions that the two of them actually did some collabs back in the day. Dropping this surprise lore, the veteran looks the swordsman dead in the eye and says he has a massive favor to ask him. Switching scenes, Alpaca spawns face down on the virtual floor, sighing in pure exhaustion after yet another humiliating game over. The glowing UI confirms that was his 13th failed run in a row, while chat laughs and tells him to just uninstall. Slumped on a digital rock, the blonde guy instantly regrets not just using the meta strats to melt the boss. Suddenly, an obnoxious laugh shatters the zone's quiet vibe, making the guy turn his head, totally confused. A giant virtual mascot casually walks across his screen, while a user named Big Bang comes sprinting toward his buddy. Shaking with panic, the new arrival screams the streamer's name, jump-scaring his partner who just wanted to AFK for a bit. Failing to hit the brakes in time, the guy trips over his own feet and yells as he faceplants straight into the dirt. Because of the goofy fail next to the giant avatar, the chat shows no mercy and spams the screen with L's over the embarrassing wipe. Getting up with his face covered in mud, Big Bang states dead seriously that this is no time for trolling. A massive dono drops on screen demanding the creator honor his promise to crown whoever carried the raid as his ultimate sensei. Shocked by the leak, Alpaca grills his buddy, needing to confirm if some absolute madman actually managed to full clear the objective. To back up the flex, the guy pulls up a holographic window showing a direct link to the swordsman's VOD. Flexing a ton of pride, Big Bang promises he'd never script such complex lore just to troll the veteran. The clip starts playing on the panel, proving that the unknown warrior absolutely styled on the faction leader without breaking a sweat. Totally dumbfounded by the gameplay, the blonde guy whispers to himself, wondering who this player with such god-tier mechanics could possibly be. Watching the player's victory screen, the streamer stutters while trying to process the gamertag of the guy who is about to become his idol. However, before he can drop another word, a glowing DM alert violently pops up in his inbox. Annoyed at getting interrupted mid-hype, Alpaca clicks the virtual mail complaining and wondering what the spam was about. Checking the contents of the secret message, the veteran's expression completely drops, showing intense stress and absolute focus on the text. Morning light hits the massive, premium corporate building that houses the HQ of Moviesoft Korea. Sipping his coffee slowly, director Yves Fimo enjoys the AFK vibe inside his office. He takes a deep breath of the brew, showing huge satisfaction with that short, peaceful break. Shattering all the chill, his assistant kicks the office door open and rushes in screaming for his boss. Tilted by the jump scare, the boss asks if the employee forgot how to knock, getting a bunch of scrambled apologies right after. Getting his cool back, the director asks what the massive panic is about, and the kid warns him about a game-breaking issue. Skipping the filler, the guy drops the bomb that one of the game's hardest bosses just got completely zeroed out. Making it worse, he states that the user managed to full clear the zone relying purely on melee combat. The boss's face drops completely as he asks which leader got wiped, finding out it was the dreaded Drake. Thinking about the meta, Eve recalls that out of all the raid bosses, that villain was always considered the squishiest one. Chilling back in his chair, the exec lets out a laugh and says it was about time someone managed to drop him. However, the assistant leaks his real fear, that the player base will start data mining info about the order fragments. The employee reminds him that the director himself coded this entire system purely to hardlock players from getting that item. That mysterious piece of order is a secret achievement drop, awarded only to those who style on a boss with absolute cruelty. But the game engine was designed in a way that makes beating the main bosses impossible without executing a frame-perfect technique. Unlocking this hidden skill requires following a highly specific questline, totally bricking the run for anyone trying to RNG their way through. The boss is absolutely sure of this, since the mechanic was built specifically to gatekeep progress and force users into a massive time sink. This entire roadblock is meant to force the player base to burn hours theory crafting just to level up. Monitoring the forums flooded with theory posts, the guy notes that the community is already sweating hard trying to find the tech. Even hearing his boss's logical cope, the assistant stays panicked about the ripple effects of this unintended world first. Arguing that RNG always finds a way, he points out that the user was broadcasting the whole run live on the internet. Hit with this new intel, the director stops rubbing his temples and tries to process the data he just received. Pressing the kid, the exec instantly pieces together that the employee has been watching streams while on the clock. Terrified of getting caught slacking, the assistant drops to his knees begging not to catch a harsh ban from work. Ignoring the crying, Eve goes back to his desk breathing heavily, pissed that he lost the chance to drop a massive lecture on his subordinate. Staring at the office monitors, the director focuses back on the game engine, trying to cope that the items won't be farmed. Far from the corporate grind, inside a premium penthouse, streamer Alpaca asks, completely stunned, about a collab invite. His manager Suhan calmly confirms the meeting, reminding him he already leaked the collab plans a while ago. Staring at the promo banner for his next stream on his phone, the streamer doubts that carrying a newbie will farm any good stats for the channel. Standing his ground, the manager warns that his partner is looking at the meta completely wrong. The veteran clarifies that the mystery kid wasn't invited just to be some random, irrelevant filler in the event. In reality, this entire showcase was set up for the sole purpose of debuting the newbie as the absolute god of the game's mechanics. Thinking the whole strat is unhinged, Alpaca questions handing the MVP title to a guy who literally started streaming a few days ago. Ignoring the newbie's viral clout, he claims he only cares about the Pro League and considers everyone else total trash. Tired of arguing, the manager drops onto the couch and asks if he can borrow the streamer's pod as soon as the guest spawns at the house. He justifies it by saying the guest has a garbage sync rate and needs to use the most overclocked, high-end rig they have available. Refusing to lend out his premium hardware, Alpaca turns his back pissed off and declares he's going to spectate the event straight from his bedroom. Left alone in the living room, Suhan stares at the locked door, sighing about how tilted his partner has been lately. Suddenly, a massive realization hits Suhan's brain, making him freeze mid-step in the hallway. He connects the dots and realizes how insane it is for someone to brute force clear the game, without even having the minimum required specs for it. The shock makes the young man gulp, intensely regretting pitching this stream idea. Cutting off his panic attack, the doorbell of the luxury penthouse rings loudly, signaling the VIPs have arrived. Walking to the door feeling a bit nervous, Suhan's eyes go wide when he sees the guy standing in the hall. Assuming the avatar's clean look was just game mods, he is stunned to realize the MC Seojun actually looks majestic in real life. Confused by the host's shocked reaction, the kid innocently asks what this character customization stuff they keep talking about is. Internally crashing, streamer Alpaca loses all his chill over the newbie's unreal face, remembering how much of a grind it is to edit his own virtual model. Breaking the awkward silence, Tiwoo throws a hand up hyped and greets the veterans, proving he already had history with them. Being a super solid host, Soo-han invites them in and guides the guests down the long hallway of the premium apartment. Checking out the interior, Seojun is totally blown away by the god-tier decorations and the high-class vibe of the place. Walking through a massive gaming lounge packed with rigs, he notes how the streamers perfectly split their grinding space from their AFK zone. Hyped by the loot from that career path, the MC accepts the coffee and chills comfortably in the living room. Showing some serious manners, his buddy Tiwoo quickly gets up and offers to help prep the drinks in the high-end kitchen. Sitting quietly, the guy watches his partner bantering with the hosts, showing off how easily he networks. Then, the warrior's AFK thoughts are cut short when he notices someone stealthily pushing into the lounge area. The penthouse owner drops into a chill tone and finally introduces himself formally to the VIP guest of the night. Explaining his role, the host clarifies he's the head admin and video editor for Alpaca, earning a nod of respect from the kid. Locking in this new party invite with max politeness, both of them shake hands with a solid, respectful grip. However, the kid's gaze turns sharp when he feels an overly sweaty grip, suspecting it's a dumb ego check. Still locking hands, Soo-han praises his aggressive playstyle, but directly questions the guy's notoriously trash sync rate. Trying to data mine some premium lore, the admin presses him on his AFK gap from the game, and the kid replies playing mysterious. Once the coffee drops, the MC casually admits he used to grind the ranked ladder 7 years ago. Hearing about that ancient patch leaves Alpaca absolutely stunned, trying to process how outdated that crazy lore is. Staring at the kid, the admin demands to know his true past skill tier and his old rank, discovering the guy was hardstuck silver. Not buying that weak excuse, the editor swears it's impossible for someone to get that buffed out of nowhere after such a long ban. To fact-check him, the host gets cocky and challenges the newbie to a 1v1 in the training room right there in the apartment. Lost in the pointless aggro, Alpaca tries to defuse it, but his partner insists he wants to limit test the guest with his own eyes. Munching on a cookie totally unbothered, Tiwoo finds the drama hilarious and baits the host to roll the dice on the 1v1. Laughing internally, the veteran knows for an absolute fact that challenging that raid boss is a terrible, painful throw. The buddy's trollish attitude tilts Soo-han off the face of the earth, making him drop his chill face and arrogantly ask if they really think he's going to get clapped. Keeping the BM going, the partner swallows the cookie and claims the L isn't even the worst punishment of that duel. Watching the lobby get toxic fast, the warrior scratches his head, looking a little weirded out by the hostile vibe. Done with getting trolled, the admin takes a sharp breath and locks in the rule that the score of this match stays strictly offline. Flashing a glowing chip, he arrogantly swears that fighting him will be way harder than running the AI on max difficulty. The streamer's eyes go wide, completely shook as he finally connects the dots and figures out his partner's secret Smurf account. Touching his face, Seojun feels super hyped, realizing he's about to 1v1 the server's infamous mystery player. Using flawless frames, Seojun blocks the machine's heavy hit and queues up a counterattack instantly. The brutal clash of iron creates a massive blue owie explosion in the room. Spectating the match via mobile, Alpaca and the admin are totally mind-blown by the mechanics they're watching. Soo-han quickly points out, amazed, that the CPU's pathing moves like an actual prodigy. But he notices the matchup was completely one-sided, since the beginner only took damage to test limits and never actually got hit for real. Keeping his ego, the admin tells Alpaca he'd have to grind for 80 years straight to even stand a chance against the kid. Finding that claim hilarious, Tiwoo jokes that he's stressed about the event, while the host loses his mind from pure hype. Later on, Soo-han admires the city's night skybox through the apartment's massive window, going totally AFK. Shattering the deep lore moment, he randomly calls out the MC's name. Thrown off by the ping, Seojun turns his head and replies, waiting to hear what the guy has to drop. Taking a super serious stance, the manager announces that the meta is about to shift right this second. Doing that, he bows deeply and declares he'll start treating the kid as his ultimate sensei, leaving Alpaca totally shook. Grabbing the warrior's leg with zero shame, Suhan drops to the floor, fully embracing the role of a hardcore fanboy. Caught completely off guard by the weird emote, the newbie has no idea what is going on in the lobby. Justifying his logic, the host swears that any god-tier gamer earns his absolute respect, and begs the kid to add him to his friend list. The MC says thanks for all the glazing, but quickly reminds him there's a massive level gap in their ages. Throwing logic out the window, the admin shoots back saying caring about age is boomer talk and keeps spamming the sensei title. However, the lore about the 7-year AFK gap finally hits the host's brain, making him freeze instantly. Mind blown, Suhan connects the dots and guesses the kid might actually be the legendary pro player from the old patches. The admin goes completely mute, making Alpaca think the lag is weird and asking what's glitching out. Trying to hide his shock, Suhan changes the subject fast and announces the veteran stream is about to go live. Hearing that, Alpaca checks the timer and panics, realizing he's late for his own scheduled event. Leaning on the wall, the admin goes back to theory crafting the true origin of the VIP, currently in his lobby. Concluding he's just overthinking the lore, he pings Xiaojun to go gear up for the broadcast. Wasting no time, Suhan forcefully pushes the kid into the setup room, trying to speedrun the prep phase. Once jacked into VR, the veteran takes a deep breath to cue up his epic intro. The game UI instantly gets flooded, with thousands of chat messages from viewers dropping their emotes. Flexing a massive stage presence, Alpaca throws his arms wide and welcomes his chat, overflowing with hype. Watching it all on his phone, Xiaojun sees his partner kick off the event, memeing with the chat spam. The streamer reads a toxic comment asking if people were only there to see him and acts fake tilted by the troll. Overselling the emote, the blonde guy wipes a fake tear and complains about his chat having zero chill. But soon enough, he points at a specific message on screen, shouting out one of his most loyal Tier 3 subs. The user demands he honors the bet to brute force clear the hideout, making the content creator freeze instantly. Annoyed by the backseating, Alpaca fake bans the follower and declares he is absolutely not running that suicide strat. Dropping the bit for a more pro vibe, the streamer taps his cup on the desk to grab the whole lobby's attention. Hyped out of his mind, he loudly announces that the highly risky, unhinged raid will happen today. The chat goes crazy as the veteran officially locks in his infamous death run. Striking an over-the-top pose, Alpaca proudly introduces the carry who will help him bypass the game's skill check. The viewers lose their minds in the comments, loving the dramatic intro and joking that he kidnapped a booster. Pointing at a spotlight on the stage, the host cues his VIP guest to spawn in for the fans. However, the virtual lobby stays completely dead, leaving the streamer totally lost with no follow-up. Realizing his epic intro just bricked, Alpaca starts sweating bullets, while the followers spam question marks over the delayed spawn. The crowd trolls, claiming the collab is just a Discord call, which sends the creator into an absolute panic. Stressed, he slides into the newbie's DMs asking if there was a bug backstage. Meanwhile, Xiaojun's UI pings in the corner of his screen, getting the urgent summon from his co-host. Moving fast, the kid clicks the prompt on his HUD to accept the instant teleport request. He pops in right next to the streamer, completely ruining the epic cinematic intro that was scripted. The community in chat shows zero mercy for the botch and floods the screen with laughing emotes, calling the whole thing a massive meme. The users joke around, asking if this clunky guy is actually the god-tier coach he hyped up. Trying to cover up the cringe, Xiaojun waves at the stream and says my bad for the laggy spawn. Chilling on a hay bale, the young man tries to drop an excuse for the fail, claiming he's still a noob on the platform. The viewers keep flaming the kid relentlessly, making the swordsman feel a little salty about the trolling. Despite the scuffed intro, the live counter skyrockets, peaking at nearly 20,000 concurrent viewers. Tilted by the trolls, Alpaca yells at his chat, demanding some respect for his VIP collab. The host lets out a tired sigh, noticing people think being toxic to streamers is just part of the content. He understands that every channel builds its own meta, some being heavily moderated and others pure unmoderated chaos. The chill vibe returns to the virtual farm, while the two just watch the wall of text scrolling on screen. Breaking the awkwardness, Xiaojun says he actually finds this chaotic chat super fun, making his partner sigh in relief. Clapping his hands loudly, the blonde guy decides to switch topics and get back to the main quest. He drops a huge thanks to the kid for wiping the gang leader, admitting it totally saved his account from a wipe. The audience chips in with a dono begging Xiaojun not to laugh, since the Veteran 100 griefed himself to cause that mess. Fighting for his life to not break character and laugh, the beginner agrees with the chat, saying the guy dug his own grave. Backing the chat's takes, the warrior admits his partner definitely threw for content in that whole situation. To defend his throw, the guy jokes that no one could have predicted a literal level 1 player would full clear the map on day 2. The viewers take the newbie's side and keep flaming the channel owner, who just takes the L without arguing. Staring at his partner, Alpaca is amazed at his guts for handling such a massive crowd without dropping a single sweat emoji. Actually, the kid looks like he's loving the spotlight, which makes the streamer way more relaxed about the collab. Taking the L, the host puts his hands together and begs the Grandmaster to carry him out of this embarrassing slump. Taking back the lobby leader role, the blonde guy hypes up the chat, announcing he cooked up 2 main segments for today. Pointing at a virtual UI, he explains Phase 1 is going to be a training arc directly in the open world. Curious, Xiaojun asks what Phase 2 is gonna be, but his partner says the final boss challenge is staying under wraps for now. Because of that, the kid questions a specific system mechanic, admitting he hasn't spent a single skill point yet. The streamer's eyes bulge out, asking what kind of psycho tries to push the endgame using pure melee without any buff skills. Staying totally chill, the MC says he never casted magic once and genuinely asks if it's a hard requirement to level up. Faced with that absurd lack of game knowledge, Alpaca pulls a face of pure terror, while the followers troll his obvious panic. Not getting the logic, Alpaca demands to know the reason for such a troll build, and the beginner just says he didn't use it because he literally didn't know how. Keeping his cool, the guy admits it's kind of a noob move to confess, but the truth is he didn't miss having powers at all. Absolutely disgusted by that excuse, the host leans on the stream overlay trying to process the absolute griefing he just heard. Drained, he cries that his run is bricked since the guest spawned, but decides to tough it out since the viewer count hit 25,000. Swiping on his phone, the blonde guy switches topics fast and announces, Phase 2 of the event will be a deep dive into that unequipped skill tree. Right after, the creator pulls up a VOD on the stream overlay and asks chat if they've ever seen anything like it. The clip shows the exact frame, 2 fighters clash blades with insane force during a night raid. Because of the heavy impact, one of the warrior's weapons shatters into multiple polygons right in the middle of the trade. Immediately after the break, a system prompt explains that shattering 10 weapons by hitting their weak seam unlocks the weak spot detection perk. Pointing up, Alpaca details that this seam is a structural glitch that lets you break the gear, exactly like in fantasy lore. Staring at a display of heavy weapons, the MC realizes he only needs to farm 8 more of those weak points to unlock his skill node. Holding up 2 fingers, the veteran frustratedly admits that so far, he's only managed to RNG 2 of those glitches in his entire playthrough. He explains the first one was a rapier he accidentally broke in the clip he just showed, while the other was a drop he got from an NPC carry. Looking completely lost, the streamer claims he has zero clue how this mechanic actually works in-game, since it's the only skill tree he hasn't maxed out. Staring dead into the monitor, he builds up the hype, teasing that his VIP guest has a completely different take on the meta. Reaching peak hype, the blonde guy points at the kid and yells to the chat that he actually knows the algorithm behind breaking the weapons. The leak causes a riot in the chat, with users calling cap on the streamer, forcing the veteran to wave his hands to calm the spam down. Getting his posture back, Alpaca hits them with a smug smile and suggests an official bet to see if the newbie cracks the code live today. The platform has a virtual betting feature where you farm gold passively just by keeping the stream open. This fake money lets you backseat directly, like that one user who blew his points begging the channel to play a horror game. However, the crowd's real addiction is dumping their free points into predicting the outcomes of stream challenges. Hyped about the minigame, the channel owner says everyone had plenty of time to lock in their votes and opens the betting UI. Totally oblivious to Twitch slang, Xiaojun innocently asks what options like safe bet and underdog mean. Patiently, the blonde guy explains that the safe bet has high odds but low payouts, while the underdog is a massive throw, but drops insane loot if it hits. Checking the betting odds, the kid quickly realizes the viewers think it's mathematically impossible for him to hit 4 or more weak spots. Looking straight into the cam with zero stress, he calls out the followers and points out that the hardest bet has a 100 times multiplier. Flexing unbreakable confidence, the warrior tells the chat to all in on him, getting a wall of LULs from a chat that has zero faith in his carry. Unbothered by the chat's massive doubt, he turns his head with a smirk and declares anyone who drops points on that bet is getting rich. With the challenge locked, the game starts loading the instance, instantly teleporting the duo into the night raid map. The dead silence of the city gets interrupted by the sound of someone sprinting for their life through the cobblestone alleys. Absolutely terrified, a guy tries to kite his attacker through the dark streets, sweating bullets and completely out of stamina. Out of gas to keep running, he leans against a mansion's wall, desperately trying to get his stamina bar back up. However, the aggro catches up fast, forcing the victim to drop to his knees, begging for mercy with a shaky voice. Cornered and terrified, the man looks up, knowing his game over is getting closer by the second. Casually twirling a red glowing blade, the assassin flashes an evil smirk and promises to let the guy live if he tries to run one more time. Scared out of his mind, the victim panics and jumps up to sprint again, as the system tags the enemy as Louis Neville. The host explains that tonight's mini-boss is the son of a high-tier lord from the northeast sector. Camping in the alley, Xiaojun scans the target from the clip and decides the smartest play is to limit test him in a 1v1. Before pushing, the guy equips a basic sword his buddy dropped him and checks out the mid-tier stats on the weapon. Spectating from afar, Alpaca warns his chat that knowing an item's weak spot doesn't guarantee a win when you try to shatter it. Confident in his game knowledge, the blonde swears that replicating the VOD is infinitely harder than just hitting a perfect parry. However, the streamer completely freezes mid-sentence when he spots a sudden dash in the hallway. In the blink of an eye, the character rushes the enemy and parries the hit, causing a massive blue flash. Thanks to the flawless hitbox of his block, the rival's weapon takes a massive hit and shatters to pieces right in the middle of the dark street. Super chill, the swordsman puts away his weapon after securing his first structural break, leaving the viewers shook by how easy he made it look. Stepping out from cover, his buddy drops a GG for the clean tech, admitting the kid has insane RNG for breaking the sword on his first try. Right after, the blonde points out that this quick flex doesn't actually prove the newbie cracked the hidden logic behind the mechanic. Startled, the warrior stares at his friend and asks what kind of proof he's actually looking for. Flashing a confident smirk, Xiaojun declares that the theory he cooked up in his head about the tech is 100% accurate. The fans aren't having the ego trip and call the guy a fraud, forcing the channel owner to beg the chat to chill with the toxicity. The flame war gets instantly cut off by a guard's roar, pinging the area for intruders. Keeping his chill vibe, the character explains that chat needs to see it to believe it, and decides to test his theory in actual PvP. With laser focus, the kid dials his brain in entirely on spotting the exact hitbox glitch that can be exploited. He thinks back to old myths about monks who could reach a god-tier level of spiritual focus to see the source code of reality. Even though he never hit that supreme level in his past playthrough, the warrior swears he can emulate a highly accurate buff during combat. Scanning the armored enemy's tanky build, he figures he just needs to reverse engineer the dev's intention when coding that piece of gear. Channeling his mental stamina, the hero closes his eyes mid-fight, making chat spam LULs thinking he just went AFK. Seconds later, the guard thrusts his heavy polearm, but the newbie casually tanks the hit, holding down his block button perfectly. The crushing impact of the collision travels down the weapon, spawning glowing cracks right on the enemy's weapon handle. Failing the durability check at its weakest point, the bladed end of the halberd snaps completely, disarming the mob. Stripped of his main DPS tool, the armored guard loses his poise completely and flops backward onto the plaza floor. Watching the play from a few meters away, the stream host is completely mind-blown trying to process the kid's mechanics. Ignoring his buddy's panic, the hero pushes the advantage through the shattered iron to wrap up the duel. The veteran watches his partner's infinite combo under the moonlight, feeling like his brain just blue-screened. Sweating buckets with his jaw on the floor, The blonde finally admits out loud that this newbie is an absolute raid boss in the virtual world. Dropping all his streamer persona, Alpaca falls to his knees screaming in terror, while chat loses their minds trying to figure out what just happened. Completely shook, he yells that the kid hit the weak spot blindfolded and asks if his partner is actually using an aimbot. Once the dust settles, the content creator rushes Xiaojun like a madman, demanding he leak the exploit he used to pull off that miracle. The warrior turns his head acting totally clueless, but a viewer drops a toxic dono calling both of them out, claiming the whole run is staged. Tilted by the fake accusations, the host yells at the chat, entirely shutting down any rumors of scripting on his broadcast. Pointing at the live chat logs, he defends the kid, pointing out that even he thought it was just good RNG at first. Finding his partner's malding hilarious, the MC reminds everyone that he told them to believe in him and drop heavy points for the payout. However, the kid's focus shifts to another massive detail, realizing that the crowd who bet on easy wasn't the only group that got scammed in the minigame. This tiny detail hits Alpaca like a truck, making the blonde guy gulp and scream in absolute horror. The dashboard shows that only 1% of the lobby bet on the kid's success, which means the channel is about to go bankrupt paying out that massive multiplier. Diffusing the tension, the hero calmly asks if all the people spamming chat belong to that lucky 1% club. Seeing the absolute chaos in the chat logs, Alpaca slowly starts to realize what the kid's actual strat was all along. The streamer notices his partner is baiting the audience perfectly and realizes the guy's talent isn't just limited to sweating in video games. Amazed by how he controls the chat's vibe, the streamer asks if the newbie is also a natural-born content creator. Realizing this, Alpaca throws his hands up feeling relieved and tells the crowd to chill, happy he doesn't have to carry the whole stream alone anymore. Pointing at his buddy, the creator demands to know the mechanics behind the play and begs him to drop the tutorial for the viewers. Keeping his standard AFK persona, the character starts his speech claiming he's just your average guy in his 20s. Hearing such a humble brag almost makes the veteran rage quit on the spot. Tilted, Alpaca pulls up the UI complaining that the kid is literally built different, leaving the newbie totally confused. Leaking his partner's true face, the host yells that calling himself average with that skin is a literal crime, officially debuting Jin Xiaojun. While the kid is totally lost about the hype, his partner swears to the viewers that there are absolutely no beauty filters applied to the guest. The community goes insane over the drop, with users demanding the devs nerf the newbie's unreal aesthetics. At the peak of the hype, a 10,000-point dono pops up on the overlay with a super sus comment about needing to have a small hitbox somewhere. Seeing the unhinged message, the streamer's brain lags for a few seconds trying to process the viewer's sheer audacity. Shutting the meme down, Alpaca puts on his angry face and strictly declares that someone is one strike away from a permaban. The viewer quickly backpedals, claiming the joke was about his height stat, while the partner asks if he should just swing the ban hammer anyway. Staring dead into the camera lens with a scary look, Alpaca warns he's letting this toxic troll slide just this once. The audience starts dying laughing when they notice the stream's mod walking by in the background, holding a knife to intimidate the edgy chatter. Clapping loudly to reset the aggro, the host decides to cut the memes and get back to the main quest. Walking down the dark street, Alpaca demands the actual strat for the breaks, and the kid admits he isn't physically seeing the weak hitboxes. The veteran tilts his head completely lost and asks what the actual exploit is then. The newbie bows his head, putting on a super serious theory crafter expression. Tapping his temple, Xiaojun flexes a massive ego and declares he only tracks the exact glitch spots because he's an absolute gigabrain. The cocky comeback leaves his partner looking like a total clown, thinking about throwing something at the smug kid's head. The audience loves the scuffed dynamic and floods the comments laughing at the streamer getting tilted by the guest's inflated ego. Exhausted from arguing, the blonde just slumps over sad, feeling like he's becoming the main meme on his own channel. Desperate to farm content, Alpaca begs his partner for mercy and pleads for him to drop some of his god-tier tips for the rest of the server. Giving in to the spam, the hero explains that his meta was just guessing the logic the devs used when they coded the mechanic. The content creator's eyes go wide, refusing to believe the kid downloaded the devs' source code based on just 2 clips. Thinking back to the split-second frames of the blades clashing, the the kid confirms his logic and decides to drop a live tutorial. Explaining the game's engine while walking, the fighter details that normal parries were coded to wipe out low-tier mobs. Since breaking a standard NPC's gear gives 0 buffs and drains a ton of stamina, he guessed the dev team built the skill for something more hype. Piecing the clues together, the character logically deduces that the weapon break mechanic was specifically designed to cheese the endgame bosses. The streamer finally gets that you can't out-DPS the most busted enemies in the game just by holding block, and completely agrees with his partner's theory. Because of this read, Seojin Super calmly announces he's going to hunt down a faction leader right now, leaving the entire lobby in absolute shock. The channel owner panics and begs him to grind some practice runs before risking such a throw, terrified of losing all the stream's points on the bet. Scanning the game's UI with a big brain smile, the newbie looks for fresh content to entertain the chat. Catching his buddy's eye, the guy casually asks if they couldn't just drop a part 2 for the predictions. Without hesitation, he suggests opening a bet on whether he can shatter a major boss's weapon before the stream ends, starting the timer on the HUD. Flexing unbreakable confidence, the MC stares at the chat and promises the loot will be massive if they keep all-inning on him. The POV instantly cuts to a brutal boss fight, where a colossal AoE clash kicks up a massive dust cloud in the ruins. Heavy footsteps boom through the wrecked arena, revealing the outline of a terrifying boss pushing through the smoke. Malding over his firstborn getting wiped, gang leader Richard Neville swears revenge and promises to one-shot the intruder. Completely enraged, the boss rushes in and drops a devastating heavy attack with his massive blade straight into the dirt. Using his cracked reflexes, the newbie easily iframes the massive AoE and already sets up his stance to counterattack. Exploiting the open hitbox, the young man pushes in and tags the rival's dark sword, proccing a yellow energy burst. The boss gets jump-scared by the intruder's busted agility, as the kid immediately teleports behind him, ready to keep the combo going. While the villain whiffs his attacks, Alpaca spectates from the back and anxiously notices the kid didn't proc the weak spot. Stressed by the massive throw potential, the host starts questioning the strat, wondering if the weapon's glitch is hidden under unbreakable armor. Catching the doubt, Seojin throws a sharp glare over his shoulder and sarcastically asks if they seriously think he hasn't found the weak spot yet. The channel owner gets a massive jump scare, realizing the warrior can still monitor voice chat and banter normally, even while sweating in a boss raid. In the comments, the community swears it's a guaranteed wipe, warning that the boss's gear is coated with premium armor, which sends the blonde into a panic. Parrying the hits, the hero processes the new intel and deduces that the rival's sword might not have a standard hitbox flaw. Focused on breaking the super armor, he charges a glowing buff on his weapon and gets ready to limit test the game engine. With a locked-in stare, the kid announces he's going to brute force the mechanic. Without backstepping a single pixel, Seojin launches a flaming uppercut using his entire character model's momentum. Hitting the exact pixel completely deflects the boss's attack trajectory, spawning massive spark particles everywhere. Tilted by the spam, Richard asks how many more times the intruder is gonna try that useless cheese strat. Ignoring the trash talk, the beginner keeps up the DPS, spamming hits exactly on the same pixel of the giant blade. Running out of patience with the troll build, the leader charges his ultimate attack to wipe the lobby and end the raid instantly. Tracking the flawless frames of the parry, his partner screams in hype, knowing the kid hit the exact hitbox perfectly. The back-to-back clashes finally proc the effect, causing a massive sonic boom as glowing cracks spread across the giant weapon. Due to the knockback from the collision, the guy gets launched far away, but sticks the landing with a flawless animation. Right after, an achievement prompt pops up showing a hidden quest. Land 10 consecutive hits without dropping the combo to unlock the ultimate skill. Surrounded by the dust cloud, the character holds his solid stance on the same tile, flashing a satisfied smirk. Mind blown by the sequence, Alpaca loses his grip on reality and demands to know what the heck just happened. Unable to tank the perfect parries, the villain's weapon reaches 0 durability and completely shatters into scattered polygons. The UI prompt finally hits the required stack limit, officially confirming the hidden skill is now unlocked. Watching the boss drop without any defensive stats left, Seojin lowers his weapon without rushing the finisher. Overflowing with charisma, the guy admits his math was slightly off, explaining that the weak spot wasn't on the gear, but on the boss's actual hitbox. Back in the real world, the massive VR pod slowly unlocks in the private room. Pulling off the headset, the hero wipes his sweaty forehead and sighs in relief for clearing that highly stressful stream. The second he steps out of the rig, he gets jump-scared by the host bowing with supreme respect, dropping a GG to the sensei for the god-tier carry. Being super polite, the young man says thanks for letting him use the setup, while the owner swears he's the one who owes him for the premium tutorial. Full of good vibes, Seojin jokes that even their overpriced rig must have downloaded some new tech today, making his buddies shed tears of hype. Walking into the room, Tiwoo gets a jump scare from the setup he sees. He asks if his buddy is still grinding in the lobby, pointing out that he took the day off work just so he wouldn't miss the VIP stream. Hearing that, the veteran asks where the kid was actually heading, forcing Seojin to remember he totally forgot about that quest step. Meanwhile, Alpaca's chat is having an absolute meltdown, spamming the streamer to go back and invite the kid into the call. Getting clapped in-game, the blonde demands everyone stop typing and begs for mercy, so the chat doesn't completely lose its mind. Watching the chaos on his monitor, admin Suhan flashes a super proud smirk. Full of hype, his buddy announces that the stream's main event is fully queued up for his grand reveal. Waving his arm dramatically at the door, he tells the chat to drop some hype in the chat for the server's undisputed MVP. Seojin walks into the room waving at the camera, and the overlay gets instantly flooded with W's for the kid. The viewers are completely shook by the flawless skin the newbie is rocking IRL. Dripping with charm, the guy introduces himself to the lobby as an IRL travel vlogger. Moving fast, the admin adjusts the webcam angle to perfectly capture the kid's aesthetics. Trolling his blonde partner, Suhan asks for his review, reminding him he already leaked that the kid had top-tier looks. The crowd hard agrees with the meme and starts flaming Alpaca, saying his ugly mug is unpatchable. Tilted by the free toxicity, the veteran loses his mind and starts beefing with the chat live on stream. The audience declares a flawless victory over the blonde, who can only drop a sarcastic thanks, taking the massive L. Flopping into his gaming chair, the streamer announces he's going AFK for a sec to fix some settings. The chat memes that the guy ran off to cook dinner, and Seojin confirms they actually are going out to grab food as a squad after the stream. Right then, a massive whale dono pops up on screen, with a viewer calling the kid her ultimate crush. Awkwarded out by the super aggressive simp, the MC says thanks for the bag, but innocently asks if the user is actually a girl. The chat completely loses it over his sus raid, trolling him for having zero internet street smarts. At that moment, another insane payout hits the tracker, leaving the guy stunned by the sheer amount of money. The sub begs him to leak more combos using the new skill, forcing the kid to lean back in his chair to theorycraft. In his head, the buff perfectly highlights the exact geometry of the cracks on the enemy's gear. Understanding the hitboxes, he knows the exact pixel to strike to shatter their shields. Bringing the lore back to the stream, Seojin explains that pulling that off against a raid boss is way too complex to just type out in chat. Building up the hype, he swears that if they want the tech, they'll have to sub and tune into his stream tomorrow. To keep the stream's momentum going, the admin claps his hands to shift focus to the next QA from the fans. Keeping it real, the kid admits he has zero intel on that fragment drop, claiming his only training routine is just speedrunning the map non-stop. Hours later, the sound of sizzling steak fills the room during the victory dinner, celebrating the day's massive W. Hyped up, Tiwoo points at himself to answer a viewer's question about how the duo actually met back in the day. Throwing an arm around his buddy, he explains they go way back to their school days and currently co-op in the same apartment. The chat goes wild finding out their actual roommates, while the fighter just replies with a chill smile. Soon after, the crowd starts bringing up ancient, super cringe clips from Tiwoo's past on the platform. Going into full panic mode, the young man starts sweating bullets, asking what the heck the community was digging up. Taking the perfect opening, a dono drops the link to play an old VOD for the whole lobby to review. In the clip, Tiwoo is chilling in his dark room, promising to drop a hilarious story time. He leaks on the VOD that he shares a roof with a super chill guy, but sometimes he pulls some unhinged stuff that's hard to explain. Laughing his head off, the guy says he caught Seojin washing his smartphone with soap, and then using a desk fan trying to overclock the VR rig. Watching the clip that leaked his IRL fails, the main character dies of cringe and grips his chopsticks, squeezing them in pure rage. Spotting his partner's death glare, Tiwoo screams in terror, guessing that plate of food is about to be his last meal. The minutes fly by and soon enough, the plates on the table are completely wiped clean. Full and buffed, the four squadmates chill in the lounge area, celebrating the massive grind they put in on the streams. Being super humble, Alpaca admits that he honestly downloaded an insane amount of new game knowledge watching the kid's strats. Riding the chill vibe, the admin asks if the kid has ever thought about launching an official channel to upload his VOD highlights. Explaining the YouTube algorithm, the manager guarantees the first step is locking in a cracked editor to handle the clips. He taps the table to project absolute confidence while dropping knowledge on the meta. Flashing a confident smile, the blonde offers to plug him with a reliable editor if the newbie decides to greenlight the project. The guy stares at his partner with a thoughtful look, super curious to know who this guaranteed connect is. Later into the night, Seojin chills on the apartment balcony, sipping an ice-cold beer and staring at the city skyline. The quiet night vibe makes the guy dive deep into his own doubts about the upcoming grind. He thinks back to the dinner convo, where the admin grilled him on whether opening an official highlight channel was actually the right play. In his memory, Alpaca hyped it up hard, saying the newbie's analytics could literally go to the moon. Backing up the pitch, Suhan confirmed that the bag you get from that kind of hustle is usually massive. But the veteran sighed, annoyed, pointing out how it's almost impossible to find editors who actually know how to cut VR gameplay properly. Curious about their duo dynamic, the kid asked how the manager ended up teaming up with the blonde streamer. The guy patiently explained he was just an average corporate drone until the day he randomly clicked on Alpaca's stream. He noticed the blonde had god-tier talent, but his channel was totally dead and desperately needed fresh uploads. Spotting a hidden gem, Suhan decided to roll the dice and hit up the creator to offer his services. Wrapping up the lore drop, the partner shockingly revealed the guy even quit his stable salary job to full-time grind the channel. The manager flashed a genuine smile, explaining he made the pivot simply because he had 100% faith it would pop off. Showing off his sharp business sense, he guaranteed his partner was inevitably going to become an internet VIP sooner or later. Snapping back to the present on the balcony, the hero realizes launching his own page is a hard requirement for organic growth. He knows that god-tier edits farm millions of clicks and bring a ton of clout to a streamer's brand. Deep down, the guy remembers his original main quest was to just uninstall everything as soon as he farmed enough gold for his VR rig. However, he admits to himself that going live actually turned out to be insanely more fun than he thought. Slowly, he got addicted to the memes, replying to his subs, and killing time just chatting with his chat. The quiet settles over the balcony again, as the fighter gets lost in a sea of questions about what his actual core motivation is. Staring at the ken in his hand, the young man wonders, feeling pretty vulnerable, if the truth is he was just dealing with some heavy solo player loneliness. Staring into the dark skybox, the kid accepts his reality and mumbles to himself that it's probably exactly that. The night breeze rustles the leaves of a cherry tree spawning nearby. He figures that keeping the saved data of an entire past playthrough puts a massive debuff on his own mental state. In his head, this sharp feeling is like belonging to a favorite server that got permanently shut down. Exhaling to clear the debuff, the hero decides the smartest play right now is to reset his mental by focusing on his gym grind. The sunrise lights up the modern facade of the sports center, signaling the start of another daily quest for the main character. The temperature spikes inside the gym as the lobby focuses on their hardcore routines. In the octagon, an insane combo of punches and kicks gets spammed between the fighters during the warm-up phase. Dongsu dodges the hitboxes pretty smoothly, making top-tier use of the available armor pads. Spectating from afar, the coach notices the kid is taking his tilt out by putting absolute max DPS into his punches. Interrupting everyone's focus, a voice calling the kid Sensei pops out of nowhere. Out of stamina, the student demands to know how much longer he has to survive the treadmill minigame. Dropping a minor heel on the kid's ego, the coach reminds him this new training arc only started 14 days ago. Trying to flex his own stats, the student claims he's a pro, but instantly gets roasted because everyone knows his skills are hard-locked to the video game. Tilted, Dongsu complains he only ended up in this lobby because they forced him to grind some IRL combat stats. In his head, he's terrified of being stuck on the treadmill loop until the actual tournaments drop next year. Throwing a massive tantrum in the middle of the gym, he begs to be taught actual high-tier combat mechanics. Giving in to the noob's crying, the veteran coach decides they'll run a friendly sparring match today. Hyped about the green light, the kid arrogantly asks if he gets to pick his opponent for the 1v1. Jumping around, he realizes his pick doesn't matter, since any fighter in the room could absolutely zero his HP without breaking a sweat. Calling the whole lobby out for a match, the student's aggro gets instantly pulled by a newly registered member spawning into the zone. Walking at a chill pace, Seojin enters the main workout hub. From the top of the ring, the red-faced kid locks onto the new spawn, super curious about the random. Absolutely shook, Dongsu instantly recognizes him as the warrior from the viral clip on the timeline. He perfectly remembers watching that epic stream live while in a party with his older buddies. Even the gamer girl in their squad was totally mind-blown by the mechanics shown in the VOD. Inspecting the main character from a distance, the kid is mesmerized by the heavy aura the guy gives off. Being real with himself, he admits he never thought the streamer would look this majestic IRL. While Seojin walks through the room, the young guy tries to calculate why a random noob is wandering around a high-level zone like that. The warrior's piercing gaze screams confidence as he mentally scans every corner of the map. Suddenly, a toxic, big-brain strat lights up in the hyped kid's head. Spamming emotes with his hands, Dongsu yells to invite the newbie over to the PvP area. Lost by the sudden hype, the coach asks if he already locked in his sparring partner, getting a nervous no as a reply. Grabbing the student's shoulder hard, the veteran warns that his next voice line needs to be heard loud and clear. Dropping a scary warning, the instructor clarifies that the duel is strictly to practice mechanics, and absolutely not to BM your training partners. Too scared by the threatening tone, the student fails to process why his coach suddenly switched to such a hostile vibe. Scanning the main character's build, the kid calculates he can secure the W since the guy doesn't look like he has a high-strength stat. The coach demands clean sportsmanship, but the young guy just clicks accept, totally ignoring the pop-up warning. With his target locked, Dongsu points his finger at the fresh spawn and asks for permission to 1v1 him. Completely jaw-dropped by the kid's absolute throw, the instructor tries to confirm the insane dialogue option he just heard. Behind them, the rest of the gym bros go into full panic mode, already offering to tank the hits just to save the beginner from a wipe. Wearing an innocent skin, the brat asks with pure audacity if aggroing a random immediately counts as toxic behavior. Sweating from the pressure, the master states that the move is incredibly toxic and breaks every TOS rule in the gym. Feeling the chaotic lobby behind him, Seojin turns toward the lockers and stares at the two guys. Flashing a friendly smile, the kid calmly says he heard someone looking to throw hands with him. Accepting the duel request on the spot, he wants to find out how this arrogant little troll actually got his real gamertag. Admitting to being an active sub on his channel, Dongsu gets full admin rights to do whatever he wants in the ring. Skipping the intro cutscene, both of them walk super chill toward the center of the mat. While equipping his heavy headgear, the kid initiates dialogue trying to keep his cocky persona active. He glazes the guy's online mechanics, fully validating the guy's god-tier gaming talent. However, the teen's expression darkens the moment he arrogantly claims the guy's stats are nowhere near his own level. Tanking the cheap trash talk without reacting, Seojin pretends he understands the annoying rival's logic. Rocking a completely deadpan face, the warrior crushes the kid's ego by asking what gamertag he thinks he actually has. The cringe of not being recognized sends Dongsu into a rage, screaming without a filter that he's known globally as the god of gaming. Shaking with tilt from head to toe, the young guy tries to reset his mental by reminding himself the cocky guy across from him is just a system noob. Vowing to show him the actual tier list, he recommends the warrior should feel incredibly honored to even get this matchup. Warming up his muscles fast, the challenger does some short hops to set up his basic attack animation. Overflowing with confidence, he decides to nerf his own damage output to spare the supposedly squishy newbie. However, Seojin iframes the fast jab with terrifying speed, dodging the hitbox just a few pixels from his face. Away from the chaotic ring, a couple of veteran guys chill near the gym, sipping on juice boxes. The hero's dad tells his buddy that he could have dialed back the difficulty setting in the last sparring session. Casually drinking his juice, the older guy justifies that the kid's character model is deceptive, since it looks like a standard NPC with zero martial arts stats. Rewatching the brutal VOD on their phone, the duo praises the guy's raw talent and flawless footwork mechanics. Changing the topic under the Bright City skybox, his buddy asks about the progress of his proud son's streaming grind. The man replies that his stats are skyrocketing, adding that the family stopped throwing shade once they confirmed the channel was actually printing money. Letting out a long sigh, the friend points out that being a content creator is nowhere near an easy questline. The older guy remembers the brutal grind of farming viewers, picturing the kid going hollow alone with zero chat interaction. Laughing at the pointless worry, he instantly figures out the proud dad has been spending a ton of hours researching the internet meta. Super hyped about the topic, the veteran holds up his screen, telling his buddy his son should speedrun an insanely popular retro classic. Skeptical about the big brain strat, the partner asks if such an outdated title could still farm views in the current meta. Ignoring the negative review, the dad goes all out, swearing that any true hardcore fan is obligated to hype up that absolute gem. Tired of hearing the same dialogue loop, the buddy fires off a question asking how many actual subs the boomer's channel even has. Oozing a sense of absolute victory, the older man smiles and reveals his viewer count already smashed the 3,000 sub milestone. The shock of the stat drop makes the partner spit his drink everywhere, causing massive disgust from the kid's dad. Unable to process his buddy's insane engagement rate, he starts lagging out while trying to accept the scale of those numbers. The scream of pure shock travels fast through the zone, and the POV instantly cuts to an active PC monitor. The narrator explains that the game's player base completely lost their minds right after the epic stream that dropped yesterday. On the community boards, threads mentioning the young guy farmed massive upvotes and, surprisingly, didn't get hit with any toxic downvote bombing. Chilling comfortably on his living room couch, Seojin notices his clout level literally went to the moon overnight. Ruining the much-needed AFK time, his phone vibrates with a ping from his streaming partner, dropping a sus link. Clicking the URL, the kid gets super confused reading a toxic thread, flaming his combat mechanics with incredibly salty takes. Remembering his partner's warning about how farming clout always pulls unprovoked hate, Seojin stares at his phone, totally disgusted by the drama. Without wasting time, the kid figures the optimal play is to submit an official ticket reporting the defamatory post. Sitting on the edge of his bed in the dark, the warrior decides it's mandatory to queue up a new stream just to drop some lore and protect his brand. Fully jacked into his massive Neuralink rig, the newbie finishes his pre-stream setup to cross into the digital world once again. The guy thinks it's absolute madness to imagine the sheer size of the lobby today, considering he literally created his account 3 days ago. As soon as he goes live with a clickbait apology title, the viewer count instantly spikes to 15,000 concurrents. Far away from there, inside the dev studio, a violent slam echoes through the room after someone smacks a wooden desk. Absolutely mouthing over the meta, the lead dev demands to know how the secret weak point mechanic got leaked so early. Pacing anxiously around the room, the older guy mumbles angrily that the feature was specifically coded to force players into at least 30 days of hardcore grinding. Shrinking on the couch, the assistant mutters quietly, reminding his boss he already dropped a bad feeling about this before the whole wipe happened. Overflowing with rage, the director pushes toward the employee asking what he's yapping about, since the assistant was AFK before this whole meltdown. Trying to de-escalate his boss's tilt, the guy begs him to chill, admitting that even he never expected the Easter egg to get cracked by a solo player. That statement just leaves the director even more stunned, unable to process what the dev is implying about the mechanic getting data mined. Pointing at the rig sitting on the desk, the assistant just asks his boss to check the VOD loaded on the monitor. Watching the clip with heavy suspicion, the boss asks what the meta is, and the dev hits play on the clip showing the weapon's durability getting shattered. The footage highlights the exact frame the young guy iframes a stealth attack at night and obliterates the opponent's armor. In the highlight reel, the warrior drops an intimidating emote seconds after flawlessly destroying the enemy's gear. Shook by the tier of gameplay shown, the manager sweats bullets asking how any of that makes sense within the game's actual lore. The assistant leans back chilling and guarantees that checking the source code proved there are absolutely zero bugs or exploits in the system. Hyped to leak the upcoming patch notes, the employee pulls up a screenshot on the big screen and poses like he's just another fanboy reviewing the VOD. With pure hype, the assistant explains the warrior downloaded the mechanic instantly, one-shotting a roadblock designed to farm weeks of playtime. Flexing massive confidence, the dev states that, based on his knowledge of the engine, the user absolutely did not inject any cheats. The boss facepalms in frustration, acknowledging the newbie's god-tier mechanics, but instantly demands a patch to fix this absolute nightmare. Wearing a fake innocent face, the helper asks what nightmare the guy is talking about, making the director's entire character model shake with rage. He screams like a madman that all the studio's roadmap plans are going straight to the trash if the artifact drops earlier than the scheduled event, while the assistant acts like it's an NPC problem. The director's eyes show pure panic when he drops the words, "Order Fragment." That premium, glowing legendary item was patched into the game purely as a secret Easter egg to farm hype for the upcoming DLC the studio was cooking. He explains that as soon as a party collected all 4 pieces, a hidden side quest would auto-trigger. This secret raid would force the player base to grind for the cursed chaos fragments, setting the stage for the massive content drop coming next patch. And the marketing strat was betting everything on dropping the epic expansion trailer in the main hub for the fans, exactly when the world first clear happened. Pacing around the room, the director suffers knowing he's the big brain who designed such a flawlessly orchestrated monetization campaign. However, the perfectly min-maxed architecture of this rollout got completely griefed by the unstoppable rampage of this one single player. Out of stamina, the guy collapses onto the couch, unable to cope with the fact that some kid just completely bricked the company's entire roadmap. Trying to find an out, the boss asks what the cooldown is to render the cinematic from scratch, getting told they'd need a minimum of 1 month. Staring blankly, the manager asks what the new ETA would be if the dev team pulled all-nighters and burned their HP bars in crunch time starting today. The assistant calculates the odds and claims there's a highly viable chance they can ship it in exactly 7 days of non-stop grinding. Clenching his fists, the boss wants to know the RNG odds of that specific player managing to farm the remaining drops in such a tight window. With a massive grin on his face radiating contagious hype, the kid swears on his life that the guy is 100 going to secure the world first. The dev bets on a flawless victory for the loot farm, giving off an absurd confidence that is the exact opposite of the patch the studio needed right now. The brutally honest reply makes the boss throw his weight back on the couch, shaking with pure rage at the dev's completely untethered chill. With his vision getting dark from the tilt, the exec grinds his teeth and spams toxic insults at the cocky employee. The violent roar demanding the kid to log out echoes, so loud its hitbox clips through the massive office windows. Finally solo in his lobby again, the guy lets out a heavy sigh, feeling the massive debuff of stress stacking on his tired shoulders. Staring at the laptop left on his desk, he reviews the clips of the young warrior, questioning his own sanity about whether those frames are even real. Haunted by such terrifying RNG, the director clicks the mouse, still struggling to believe a simple noob could output that much DPS. Pausing the VOD right on the crucial frames of the fight, the manager admits defeat, accepting the user's movement tech is practically flawless. Unpausing the clip, his eyes stay glued to every lethal input the fighter executes on the glowing monitor. The view counter smashes past 100,000 while the director studies the brilliant parries, pausing the video over and over. Every time he loops it, the absurd violence paired with the newbie's flawless inputs just breaks the brain of the guy who helped code the game. Taking the L to the virtual highlights, the director decides to type Xiaojun's gamertag straight into the platform's search bar. The UI pulls up a massive list of god-tier runs, where the kid zeroes out the server's mobs using lethal combos that make it all look like a tutorial. Watching every single clip religiously, the director covers his face, accepting the hard proof that the warrior's aggressive meta is absolutely insane. Caught in the hype, he clicks the search bar, remembering he was the one who designed that questline, but not in a million years did he think it would get speedrun this hard. The hours fade fast in the quiet room, while the clock on the desk shows it's already way past 3 a.m. Rolling his shoulders trying to clear the stiffness debuff, the boss calculates the last time his own grind actually gave him such genuine hype. He realizes how awesome it feels to run into a user who creatively limit tests the exact sandbox his team burned so much HP building. The guy flashes back to the endless sleepless nights forcing his devs to crunch, just so the player base could have total sandbox freedom. Becoming a genuine Tier 3 sub, the architect of that world clicks to officially join the streamer's permanent subscriber list. The second the follow goes through, the page's analytics hit a terrifying milestone of nearly 2,000 active subs. Miles away from the corporate drama, Seojan's apology stream goes live, showing him dropping a friendly emote to the viewers in the lobby. Checking the completely spammed chat boxes, the kid notices the text scrolling at lightning speed, and internally drops a GG for not skipping his pre-stream setup. Wasting no time, one of his day one defenders, rocking an assassin skin, gets highlighted by the app's UI, earning full mod privileges to manage the chat. Another OG partner, using a weird aquatic animal avatar, also gets VIP commands to permaban trolls and keep the peace. Confirming his party is fully queued up, the fighter cracks a chill smile and asks if his premium mods are in position. Hyped for the carry, he claps and announces to the crowd that the duo is officially taking over as head admins for the channel from now on. The new streamer explains he partied up with these specific users because they've been loyal since his absolute lowest tier streams. He leaks that he sent DMs asking for backup to mod the chat, and almost everyone clicked except without a second thought. The young guy notices only one party member is still AFK, but ignores the bug and pulls up the transparent chat UI on his main screen. Pointing at the glowing panel, he tells the chat to quickly scan the basic TOS rules that everyone is required to follow starting now. Seeing the community spam a grade, the MC's expression drops hard the second he remembers the actual main quest for tonight's stream. His focus sharpens as he calls out the fake leaks from other users regarding his tech for breaking weapons. Taking the L for causing the early confusion, the young guy begs the chat for forgiveness for his terrible tutorial explaining the broken tech. Skipping the filler, he argues that he literally just looked at how the durability loss rendered on the enemy's gear to calculate the exact pixel to hit. With an utterly bored face, he admits he knew the chat would hit him with accusations even if he proved the strat live. Wanting to permaban the drama, the kid drops the receipts, pulling up an email where he self-reported his own private account asking the devs for a manual anti-cheat review, which completely shakes the chat. Betting that the quick tutorial and the hard proof will silence all the toxic flaming, Seojan gets a massive buff to his mental state. Carried by the good vibes of clearing his debuffs, he decides to push forward and actually play the game, but catches a glowing interactive ping on his right. The UI flashes a shiny graphic, confirming a massive drop of 1 million points, a formal emote from the devs paying respect to his gigabrain plays. Inside the floating premium menu, the 3D model of a majestic boss radiating massive particle effects proves this is the next target getting sent back to the lobby. The game's new quest demands a complex stealth operation to quietly execute the most lethal admin running the map's central tower. Theory crafting, the warrior figures the gold drop, is insanely high considering this is technically his first official quest pickup. He drops some heavy breathing into the mic, faking a panic attack over the massive raid the engine just queued him up for. While the loading screen progresses, the chat goes crazy theory crafting if this isn't just a secret bounty dropped directly by the server admin. The subs can't hide their troll emotes, seeing the kid actually coping that this quest is gonna be a clean stealth run with zero aggro. The virtual world flashes green, loading in a majestic metropolis covered in darkness, ruled by a massive stronghold planted right in the center of the map. The god-tier location is known as the absolute core of dark intelligence, populated from top to bottom by magic users. Out of nowhere, the sharp audio cue of a blade slicing the dark completely ruins the monumental AFK vibe of the paved streets. An NPC wearing a classic thief skin spawns, terrified behind the guy, crying that the aggro in this zone feels like 1,000 players targeting him at once. Failing to understand why his useless autofilled partner is so tilted, Seojan brushes it off, betting that their actual role is just to secure a clean, stealthy elimination without pulling the whole server's aggro. Accepting his partner is a total bot, the kid declares he's going to clear the objective by just forcing a direct PvP fight. Strolling casually down the lit streets, he thinks about how he grinded the wiki so the stream wouldn't be a snooze fest. But the chat hard disagrees with his logic, claiming his only actual strat is just brute forcing his way to the top. Even with the trolling, the swordsman hesitates for a split second, wondering if pushing the magic tower is throwing the run. Brushing the lag off, he pushes forward confidently toward the massive double doors of the main entrance. As soon as he enters the shiny grand lobby, the kid notices the super chill pathing of the NPCs inside. Watching the locals casually going up the stairs, Xiaojun wonders if these are the famous mages of this zone. The chat quickly backseats, explaining that the lower floors only function as a safe zone market for regular civs. Understanding the map's layout, he keeps walking down the premium hallway, checking for interactables. The chat points out how dead silent the audio is, confirming the newbie is actually following the optimal route. Ruining the AFK vibe, an armored guard body blocks the path, hard-locking the entrance to the next zone. The soldier grips his polearm tight, while a system prompt suggests that an intimidation check would make him back off. Completely ignoring the stealth tutorial, the kid fires off a brutal red-glowing heavy attack at the soldier. Jump scared, the guard misses his parry window and eats the full damage of the heavy strike. The extreme knockback of the hit sends the enemy flying backward, completely shattering his guard meter. Capitalizing on the enemy's massive whiff, the newbie locks in, ready to execute the finisher. However, a mysterious Root CC magic circle spawns on the floor, completely stun-locking the damaged guard's model. The MC freezes on the exact frame. He hears a sinister laugh echoing right behind his back. A dark mage spawns in, charging intense blue fire particles in his hands, declaring the invader missed his timing. Without wasting a single frame, the enemy mage fires off a lethal burst of energy straight at the kid. The swordsman turns his tense face, reacting to the massive attack coming his way at extremely high speed.